Okay, good morning, everyone. Sorry for the minute delay. Welcome to the Trinity County Board of Supervisors, April 2nd. Supervisor Finley, will you lead us? Oh, again.
Be my pleasure. Stand up and face the flag. It's my pleasure. Everybody join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to public comment. This time is for information from the public on matters not appearing on the agenda. All comments are limited to 3 minutes and must pertain to matters within the jurisdiction of the board. When addressing the board, please state your name for the record and address the board as a whole through the chair. No action or discussion will be conducted on matters not listed on the agenda. However, the chair may refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up or schedule the matter on a subsequent agenda. All right, moving on to public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to speak?
Does this work? Okay. Everett County, Weaverville. First thing is, a few meetings ago, I sort of chastised you for not going to the planning commission meetings on grading. And I think I may have to apologize, but I'm not sure, because it may be that you can't all go to it. But on the other, unless all of you go to it, because somehow you're getting privileged or I don't understand it all. But anyway, I sort of apologize if I did the wrong thing. So now I'll sort of chastise you on something else. I don't quite understand why cannabis licenses seem to be such a secret thing. It's very hard to get information as to what's going on. I noticed that lately, though, there's publications of APN numbers in the journal with very little explanation as to what it is. I also understand that the county does send out notices to the neighbors, giving them the opportunity to put in their input. But they're having trouble getting information too as to what's going on. And I also understand there's a very exorbitant fee if you decide to file a complaint. There seems to be something going on here that I don't quite understand. I've heard the phrase is for public safety letter, but no explanation as to what that is. If it's, well, I could speculate, but anyway, something's going on there that's not very transparent. And public records are public records. You should be able to go get them. I leave it at that.
Good morning. I have a handout to facilitate my public comment. So I'm John Knight from Weaverville, and think of this as a 3-minute lesson on our Trinity County weed management area. I was the CAL FIRE representative on the weed management area for 7 years, 2000 to 2007. The weed committee is a lot like the collaborative. It was a diverse group of people that came together to try and address a problem. In the case of the weed management area, they focused on invasive species. They came up with an MOU, identify the problem, and then how are we going to work together on this problem. And then to address the problem, they came up with a strategic plan, how to move forward, how to solve the problem. And that's when I came on board the committee. And it was my fate that I became the point man for the tree of heaven, Ailanthus altissima. It's the tree that's spreading downriver, it's despoiling you know, the scenic byway, Highway 299. You can see it along the rest area, it's growing there, that's on like its 8th cutting. If you go up Helena Road, there is just a gem of a swimming hole up there on the North Fork where there's a rope swing. It's taking over that, it's despoiling our natural areas, it's invading our historic mining areas as well. So with that information and additional research, I wanted, with the support of the committee, to bring forward to the board in 2003 that we have a problem and that we're not addressing. All right, so that effort was blocked by SAFE because the committee, 100% consensus. So if you can't bring everybody on board, nothing happens. And that brings us to this picture here. So what Caltrans did in the upper picture is they did a demo for SAFE. They said, okay, we're going to show you that this is a plant is a really tough customer. We're going to go in, we're going to dig it up, and we're going to burn it. We're going to bring heavy equipment in, crews, and that's what they did in this area. And then 2 years later, it's back and growing vigorously. But that got us nowhere with SAFE because it became apparent that it conflicted with an ideology or a specific view that facts didn't matter. This experiment didn't mean anything. So I carried the baton for several years, and then SAFE had it, and really nothing's been done in the last, you know, since 2004. So I'm handing the baton to you guys, okay? Because it's your policy that is in fact inhibiting people with responsible land ethics from taking effective action on these natural areas. So I wish you luck, and I'll just conclude by saying that I know this is a future agenda item, and it's tough to do everything in a 3-minute lesson, soundbite. So I'm going to offer, I have a PowerPoint presentation that if you really want to get into the weeds, pun intended, that you know, discusses the issue more in depth, and I could offer that, and then you could offer the same amount of time to SAFE, you know, equal time, and they could rebut it, and the facts that I present to you. So I feel like the weed committee offers you a way forward, their strategic plan. It's there for you if you choose to accept it. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Gail Goodyear. I'm a voter in District 4, and I consider myself a Trinity County citizen. I'm here to talk about county government culture. You have some items on the agenda today that pertain to these 3 items. We have a grants office. We put some emphasis historically on the pre-award process. That is getting the money. We have historically fallen short when it comes to post-award activity. That means adhering to regulations, that means documentation, that means following spending guidelines. And so I encourage you to make sure that you have staff that have a separate responsibility for post-award, and you allow the people who are excellent at pre-award activities, including yourselves, to get the money. Some people get money, some people account for money. Thank you for listening to that. Also, I have been in front of the supervisors and the planning commission regarding paperwork. I firmly believe in a 3 proofreader rule, and that helps get quality paperwork in front of the people who need to read it. A 3 proofreader rule. I encourage you to encourage all department heads to use this policy. Sometimes I've been in a workplace where I don't have colleagues at another desk or in the office, so that means I have to pull in buddies, and people do that all the time. My 3rd point is about parliamentary procedure. I've been sitting in the room on a number of occasions where I believe there's a point of order, there's a violation, and I, as a member of the public, do not know how to bring that forward. I have seen people do it in a public shaming and written comments distributed throughout the community. I'm unwilling to do that. Parliamentary procedure exists to maintain a sense of propriety, that we are honorable and respectful of each other. And when there is a point of order problem, that means we are being disrespectful to one or more people in the room or in the county. And I realize I have looked at your governance document, that you have a parliamentarian. If I'm bringing this forward, it means more work needs to be done in this area. I ask you to address these 3 items as a matter of respect to yourselves and to everyone in our county. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm J.D. Green, Trinity Alps Unified Superintendent. I want to thank all of you guys for your service. I know how difficult your jobs are, and we appreciate you in Trinity County. My goal is to come and communicate that the schools want to work together with all the resources within the county. So I want to be available to be that venue if any of you have time. Able to go to lunch with Mr. Brown yesterday, and he talked about some art projects, and his plans is to come and address all of the administrators of the entire county. We have an opportunity here to serve our students as best we can, so the better we come together, the more we pool our resources, the better we can educate students, and really appreciate what you guys do. So thank you very much.
Good morning, John Ledden, Douglas City. Most of you have heard the first thing that I want to talk about. That's my old Shop One story about the goldfish bowl analogy. When you're in public office, it does feel like that everybody can see what you're doing and everybody can hear what you're doing, and that's where the goldfish bowl analogy comes in. For Supervisor Brown, and perhaps you haven't heard me on this subject before, but I urge you to keep in mind that there's, from inside the goldfish bowl, it's very easy for those who appear in front of you to have a magnified presence, and for people who are closest to you or who show up in the largest numbers at meetings to have the loudest voice. And you don't represent only those people that have the loudest voice or have the marshal the largest numbers in public meetings or anywhere else for that matter. You represent all the people and trust that you will do so. And that includes, of course, the people who have regular jobs and have children to take care of or elderly parents to take care of and can't make it to public meetings. But it's important that you keep in mind that all of them are your constituents, just as those who frequently appear in public meetings. Next, a couple of kudos. I noticed on the agenda there are a number of items dealing with contracts with the Forest Service. I'm not going to talk about any specifics, but kudos to the sheriff for going out and trying to get the agreements that will increase law enforcement in the county. This is something that's been sorely missed for a long time. I counted up as something north of $175,000 worth of money to the county on these contracts that we'll be considering today. And good on him for doing that. Also, kudos to the new cannabis division of the planning department. The fact that there is such a group now is a great improvement, I think, for anybody concerned about the process and the functionality of the planning department. And from my few contacts at that office, it seems like they're doing a lot of good work. And by good work, I mean efficient, appropriate, objective work. And I hope that continues. I had a couple of other ideas in mind, but we'll let you get you on with your morning. Thanks for your time.
Kate Graves from Lewiston. I missed the last meeting. Hopefully the reason for missing it was more productive than sitting here. But I just find it ironic. I never thought I'd be in the position where I have to go to the federal government for help. I mean, I don't even consider it constitutional what I'm asking of them, but that's where we are today. We've tried doing everything we can legal. I've been getting the agendas for like 20 years. I've been coming to these meetings for, I don't know, 9 years. My children came to these meetings until my husband retired. My son was 5 and had to come to these meetings. They've been to more meetings than most people in this county. So it's not convenient, but it can be done. And we've tried talking, we've tried presenting facts, we've tried initiatives. You guys sued us over our initiatives that were legally placed on the ballot. You didn't even let them get to the ballot because you didn't want them there. And you spent money to sue us to keep them off. And you tell us that it's declaratory relief because it's going to be a smoking ruin if they pass. Yet people in the Forest Service who knew what they were talking about, the CAL FIRE people signed off on those. Yeah, they signed the initiative so they would be on. That's how we were supposed to do it. But you guys sued us and it was gone. And then you lied that you didn't sue us for money. And then I don't know what you did with the judge, but you get away with, Derek Cole saying, oh, sorry, we copied and pasted that we wanted money 3 times and checked the over $25,000 box, but that was a mistake. And the judge goes, case dismissed. So I don't know what we're supposed to do anymore that's legal. I mean, you guys can let us know what we're supposed to do that's legal. Because now I'm having to go outside and it's not a happy place to be. And no one's gonna like it, and I don't like it. And I guess you guys aren't gonna straighten out and fly right until someone comes in from the outside, because the state's not gonna do it. There's a corrupt and complicit as Trinity County. And it's just weird to go do what I know is unconstitutional, because that's where we are now.
Good morning. I'm Richard Brumfield. I live off and on in Trinity County up in Hayford, mostly during the summertime and during the cultivation season. The name of my company is Full Spectrum Omega Incorporated. And what we are is a phytocannabinoid research company. And I'm currently trying to work with the city of Adelanto, California. And we are working with them. We were able to get all of the state first license from cultivation, retail, distribution, transportation, and we're going for the nursery. And one of the things about that pilot program is it's going into a federal program that I'm working with the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. And because my formulation is made for outdoor cannabis, I'm looking to use Trinity County as a pilot program to cultivate particular strains of cannabis so we could buy it. We are the Full Spectrum Omega is a solution for your distribution center. We are the buyers. We have an extremely large network of people that we have to supply a product to, and actually to the Health and the Department of Defense. So I'm looking for cultivators, mom and pop type, because I've seen that with large cultivators, they don't care for the plant like the mom and pop, the cottage industry. So we want to try to use Trinity County as a pilot program, working with the DEA to see can we just make a county in compliance, to make a whole county where we don't want to interrupt the economic of the city, but we want to give the city a means to have their cannabis all legally with payroll, check, under full track and trade, under the state program, working to a federal program. See, I need a state program first to be set up, and we done that in Adelanto, to bring the federal program in compliance with it. So with the state, with Adelanto, we have now the permanent license, cultivation license indoor, and we also have the distribution license. And we are looking for products to bring it to the federal government to be sold to other researchers. So Trinity County is the perfect place to grow cannabis outdoors. The other county I'm looking at is Siskiyou County and Butte County. But because I've been coming to Trinity County for the last 10 years, I've decided to use Trinity County first, but it's gonna be up to Trinity County, do they want it to be here? Also, we could bring a complete compliant, state compliant team together, MTRS out of Adelanto, to come and help you set up all your regulations and make it work for you. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, moving on to the consent. Well, let me just address a couple of quick things, sorry. There was Mr. Everett, there were some questions you had that might be able to answer them on the planning department website. They have a Q&A, so some of your questions might get answered on that. If not, you can always speak to our CAO on some of your questions. Also, in terms of the weeds committee, we gave direction on this herbicide issue that there was supposed to be a weeds committee meeting on this. It didn't quite happen as we had expected, nor did the public workshop that we had requested not quite happen either. So we're trying to get that back on track so the public of all sides of the issue can get the information that they were requesting of Caltrans. So, and then in terms of quality paperwork, we certainly gave direction on that last meeting or two. So that could hopefully continue. Although I have some issues on an item coming up on that, so I'll talk to him about them then. All right, moving on to consent calendar. Oh, thank
If I
you.
would be allowed, I'd like to submit a subsequent for the board's consideration.
Please do.
Requested action to move to discuss and/or take action or a support letter for Senator McGuire regarding SB 67 and find that the need to take immediate action came to the attention of the board subsequent to the agenda being posted. The urgency is the Senate is meeting on Thursday to discuss this item. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. All right.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Anyone opposed? Seeing none. We will hear that at the end of the agenda. Someone's phone ringing? Okay. Moving on to consent agenda. These items include routine non-controversial matters that will be acted upon the board by one roll call motion. A member of the board, staff, or public may request an item to be pulled and considered separately. Okay. Supervisor Brown.
We'll pull it right now.
Yes, what number would you like?
1.4.
1.4, alrighty. Supervisor Groves, can I assume you're for 1.8?
1.8.
Supervisor Finley? Supervisor Chadwick? Okay. I will pull 1.13. Let's see. And just for some clarification, no, I'm good, so never mind. Any members of the public wish to pull an item? All right. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to pass the remaining.
So moved.
Second.
Tina?
Supervisor Chadwick?
Aye.
Supervisor Burrow?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Finley?
Yep.
Supervisor Morris?
Yes. All right. Well, for 1.4, it's continued from our earlier meeting in March. It's to authorize chairman to sign a letter to the California Fish and Game Advisory Commission supporting the brown trout management plan being proposed by the Hoopa tribe and other fishery managers, no fiscal impact. So Supervisor Brown, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, Kyle's here, right? Yeah. I just want to have a little more time to go over some of the report and I've received some input since you and I met, and Supervisor Chadwick, and so before I can sign off on it, I would like to speak with you at some point and discuss some other things. I'm sorry I wasn't able to do it before this meeting.
No worries.
Okay, I'll make a motion to table this item since it is time sensitive, and at this point, we probably won't need to hear it ever again, I believe.
I think there is a time deadline, right?
Yes.
Later this month.
So,
Do you know what date exactly?
Either invite Kyle up.
yeah, I'm gonna have Frank vouch it, so. Kyle, would you mind coming up? So what is your, I understand there is a deadline you guys need.
The Fish and Game Commission, the state commission meets every April, I believe it's on the 20th,
Okay.
and they set the regulations for that year. So they will consider it then, and they won't be able to consider it again until next year on the April meeting.
Correct.
So Supervisor Finley, would you wish to table it to the next meeting, which is the 16th?
I'm going to withdraw my motion and let other supervisors decide whether they wish to actually hear this or not. I was simply tabling it regarding time sensitive,
But we have.
and that it would be over, and it'll be up to other supervisors then.
So for clarification, Kyle, if we had it before the, thank you, meeting on the 16th, we'd still have a little bit of room to hear the item.
My understanding is, no, they need a week.
Oh.
On the other item, they need a week to get the paperwork through to the, they're not as fast and loose as flexible as we are.
Supervisor Chapman?
Well, I did not know that information, but I would still make a motion that we postpone it until Supervisor Brown has an opportunity to get all of his questions satisfied. And so that would put it to the April 16th, and what I would do is I would just have your paperwork ready one way or the other, and that way when we are completed, if it's a green light, you're already prepared.
I can do that. I can try. I might not be able to make it to the meeting. I can send one of the other commissioners.
I mean, I can probably ask all the questions to you well before then.
Okay.
And feel good about my decision at that point. But some information wasn't brought to my attention until about Friday last week. And I feel it is an important thing. I don't want to just set it aside for the sake of time.
The Board of Supervisors should know that this will go forward, and the Fish and Game Commission will hear it. It's just whether we'll have input or not.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my motion is to bring this back at the April 16th meeting.
Okay. Do I have a second? All right. I have a motion, a second.
So subsequent,
All right.
that we do this an hour after our meeting ends, and that gives Kyle an hour to talk to, Jeremy to talk to Kyle, and then we come back. I do think this is time sensitive. Let's move forward today, or we are in fact saying no, we don't support it.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right.
Is there a chance for public comment before you do this?
Yes, please come forward before we make, we're rushing, so thank you, Ken.
Kay Grace from Lewiston. I'm glad there was a little more information in there, but there was actually no more information in there. Thank you to whoever Googled brown trout and put some more stuff in there, and congrats on getting the thesis published. But there's still no, it says that you guys want to approve the management plan being proposed by the Hoopaw tribe and other fisheries managers. That is still nowhere to be seen. Is there one? Are they gonna make it up afterwards? I don't understand why there isn't one, and that's the actual agenda item. and that's what your letter's for, and I'm not just trying to be a jerk about it, but I know, right next to me, I'm seeing how they're managing the river, and they're literally taking massive mounds of tailing piles, shuffling them around, taking them upstream and dumping them in the water. And that's one of the other tribes working on that. So I would like to know what they're actually going to do and going to be held to, because as far as I can see, and all my experience on the river, they're ruining it. They're ruining it on purpose, the side channels, the everything they're doing, the stuff they're doing that we would go to jail for. And I have some pictures, if you guys want to see them, not far from our house, where they bulldoze right up to the river. They have a hole that's like probably 25 feet wide and 15 feet deep, and literally 3 feet from the river that they suck water out of. And their intake is barely legal. It's right at the 6 inch. I mean, that's a lot of water. Then their slurry goes into what we would be in trouble for filling in a wetland. So it's just ludicrous what they're doing, and they've been doing it for a while, and we're paying for it. We're paying to have our river ruined, and we're paying to have our salmon listed. And it's just really annoying to see, and I don't want any more vague. I mean, they're gonna do it anyway, whether you guys sign off or not. But it would be nice if you guys knew what it was before you signed off on it. Because it's bad enough what's happening to our water, and P.S. our water, Trinity was in that lawsuit. I don't know why your law firm didn't find it, and if you want the page number, I'll give you that. I guess they got tired and didn't read far enough, but it's kind of a moot point. Other counties tried to sue against them, and they got hammered, but at least you could have done was said, we don't like it, and it's the same with this. So next time when this comes back, there needs to be the plan with it, or at least an outline of the plan. Thank you.
So,
John Horpels from Weaverville. I've read through most of the documents, and what you're being asked to support with the brown trout management plan is basically to remove a significant portion of the brown trout from the river with electrofishing. And the theory is that the brown trout are adversely affecting the native salmon and steelhead populations. Doing so will devastate what is now a world-class trophy brown trout fishery. So, in order to do that, there would need to be clear and convincing evidence that the brown trout are actually affecting the native population. The basis for the recommendation is a thesis, the Alvarez thesis, in which he attempted to measure how much the brown trout eat and how many brown trout there are. And so in terms of what the brown trout eat, he tried to estimate what they eat in terms of hatchery fish and wild fish. And in terms of hatchery fish, he found about 6.5% of the fish released from the hatchery are being eaten by the brown trout. And what's important is the confidence interval around that number. It could be anywhere from 4.1% to 9.6%. So 6.5% is a fairly good estimate. However, there's this number floating around for what the wild consumption is. And that number is anywhere from 20 to 25%. However, when you look at the actual data, the uncertainty in that number goes from 4.1% to 88%, which means you can't provide any information relative to the brown trout eating wild salmon. So that number is in a number of these documents, and it has to be viewed in context. Now, the other factor, gosh, I only got 12 seconds left, is the population. The Trinity Junction City Reader population in 2013, they counted 236 fish, and that's dropped every year. And in 2018, that number was 20. So there's been about a 90% drop in the brown trout population. So any suggestion now to remove further brown trout seems unnecessary. And just so you know why it's a world-class fishery, I'll leave this.
Okay, great, thank you for your comments. Okay, anyone else?
Gail Goodyear, District 4. I attended a number of river restoration project meetings for years and years, and for a very long time, when the Department of Fish and Game would talk about wild fish, I asked for a definition of what wild fish is. So I really hope that all of you have a common understanding of what wild fish are. And so, and I asked that question because for my life, the fish hatchery here in Trinity County has been operating. And so how can you distinguish hatchery from wild? And so I was finally told after a number of years that they identified the wild fish by the ones that went up the tributary. So that was what I know, but maybe they've come up with a different one, but it's very important for making a decision like this when people are trying to say, we need to save the wild fish.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, thought I had a motion, substitute. I'm sorry?
Since everyone is commenting, I'll just read the prepared statement that I had, is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Trinity County Fish and Game Advisory Commission advises the Trinity County Board of Supervisors to endorse a letter of support to the California State Fish and Game Commission requesting support for brown trout management on the Trinity River. The German brown trout is a non-native fish that was stocked in the Trinity River on several occasions during the late 1800s. There is now a self-sustaining population of these fish in the Trinity River, mostly within Trinity County. These fish are predatory and consume substantial amounts of hatchery and naturally produced Chinook salmon, coho salmon, and steelhead juveniles. While brown trout currently offer some angling opportunity, the number of anglers that come to the Trinity River to fish for brown trout is thought to be less than those who come for steelhead and salmon. Management that increases the limit for take of brown trout and organizes a bounty or derby-style fishery could offer a short-term boost to angling in Trinity County. This would come at a time when angling opportunities have been reduced by the listing of coho salmon and as threatened under the Endangered Species Act, and candidate status has been granted for spring run Chinook under the California Endangered Species Act. Increased fishing pressure and other management would reduce the impacts of predatory brown trout on native juvenile salmons. The study presented to the Trinity County Fish and Game Advisory Commission provided data that suggests that approximately 7% of the annual hatchery production and approximately 20% of the annual natural production of native salmonids is currently consumed by brown trout. The study also argued that large brown trout in particular are subsidized by hatchery production, which makes up greater than 60% of their diet. While others have argued that the reduced impacts of brown trout on native fish would be offset by increased impacts of other predators, there is no empirical evidence for this on the Trinity River, and there are very few obligate aquatic predators that would replace the niche filled by brown trout and account for their level of impact. It is the opinion of the Trinity County Fish and Game Advisory Commission that the long-term goals of recovering the native anadromous fisheries of the Trinity River and delisting species is the most realistic way to sustain angling opportunity for current and future generations of Trinity County residents and visitors. This accompanied with the short-term benefits of increased motivation for anglers to pursue brown trout during the time of year when fishing opportunities on the Trinity River are limited, is the reason the Trinity County Fish and Game Advisory Commission is advising the Board of Supervisors to endorse this letter of support to the California State Fish and Game Commission. There are some things that were said that I'd like to also add context to, the Junction City Weir is not used to estimate populations of brown trout, it's used to estimate populations of spring run chinook. It is an ancillary catch of brown trout that they document, is an index that you can use to judge general trends in population, but it does not assess the population. And then the other thing is that there were management actions taken due to a lawsuit of coho that reduced production at the hatchery. This, judging by the Alvarez study, this likely had a negative impact on the brown trout population. That and the drought are likely reasons that we've seen the population decline. And if you're going to suppress a population, you want to suppress it when it's already suppressed. That's when you'll be most effective. If you try to suppress a population that's abundant, you'll have a lot harder time.
Thank you for your comment and clarification. Supervisor Brown?
Yeah, Kyle, go ahead. I have a question for you.
Oh, sorry.
So you've answered the first, so you do say that there's a suppressed brown trout at this period of time?
Yeah, the study that actually documented a decline during the study.
Okay, so the question is the study based on today's numbers, 3 years ago's number, or when it was at its peak? So if there's a decline, obviously there's a decline in how much they eat, so.
Right, and so the numbers were actually based on I think it was the 15, 16 years. So even in that suppressed state, these were the estimates. And they are estimates, and the error bounds on the natural production are due to the similarities in isotopes from the chemical makeup of bugs in the river and fish in the river. So it becomes hard to tell. But the hatcheries estimates are very, very confident because the marine-derived nutrients that they feed the hatchery fish are distinct in the brown trout's tissue. So for interpreting the results.
Thank you.
Supervisor Chadwick had Supervisor Finley
That's fine.
overlooked, so.
Okay. Just, if anybody can tell me, I need to know where we are in this item. We've got two motions. We're at public comment.
The motions were made before public comment happened. So,
I gave my book to somebody else. That tells me how we're supposed to work.
is this okay, Margaret?
You're fine, yeah.
Thank
So you are allowed to do public comment after motions. Typically, we do like to have public comment before
Sure.
motions, but if the board jumps the gun, that's not a problem from a procedural standpoint.
Uh-oh, I'm getting another one.
Thank you.
So I would like to make a subsequent.
Can I have Supervisor Chadwick waiting for a comment, so we do
Okay.
implement.
Hold on.
Okay, Supervisor Chadwick?
Kyle, sorry to cut you, you can just probably sit there and
I'll-
answer. Is
I'll-
part
I'll
of the
just stay
reduction plan to increase tourism using anglers? Is that, am I hearing you correct, that you're actually promoting the fishing in our rivers with tourism and local people as part of the reduction plan?
So there isn't a plan. There's a bulleted list of suggested management actions. The Fish and Game Commission is the only entity that can manage a species. So anyone else can only recommend actions. So that's why there's not a definitive plan that's in front of you. There's just a list of bulleted actions. And some of those actions, and the ones that the Fish and Game Commission expressed support for in the letter that we provided you, are the actions that involve the community and encourage anglers to go out and to take brown trout. There are other actions that are more drastic, such as electrofishing or removing brown trout when they're encountered during scientific studies. We stayed silent on those actions, and the Fish and Game Commission will end up deciding what the management is. We just express a general support for actually managing brown trout to try to recover the species.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment on this item from the public? Okay, Supervisor Finley.
Yes, I'd like to make a subsequent,
To a subsequent? Okay.
to approve 4.1 as presented. Good luck getting a second.
I'll second.
1-4, yeah. Sorry about that.
I have a motion and a second to approve 4.1.
I mean, 1.4.
You're right, 1.4. Okay, so, yeah.
Wait, what can I think of?
third motion, Supervisor Groves, you have some thoughts?
Yeah, with respect to Jeremy's wanting more information, though the brown trout, and in my office I have a beautiful picture of this brown trout, not as nice as this one, but that's a nice fish. But, yeah, I'll just put my face on the picture. But this isn't part of river restoration as a management issue, and restoration isn't part of this. And the most important thing that we have to worry about is getting, delisting, and keeping others off the list. And moving the brown trout, even if it's 1% or 0.5% of take, is a step forward that doesn't go in and put bulldozers in the river. It doesn't do questionable environmental damage. So to me, this is an easier fix that can bring some benefit to sport fishermen today, and in the long run will bring a lot more benefit. So I'm going to support it at this time, since this is time sensitive and move forward.
Okay, any other comments from board members?
No, I appreciate Kyle taking the time to answer questions and the things I were concerned about you answering, so thank you.
All right, so, all in favor of approving 1.4?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so moved. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to 1.8, find the proposed license will meet the public convenience and necessity, and find no objections to the issuance of an off-sale beer and wine alcoholic beverage license to Smokehouse Market LLC for Smokehouse Market LLC at 4391 Trinity Dam Boulevard Street, Suite BNC, Lewiston 96052. No fiscal impact.
Madam Chair, I will recuse off this item.
All right. All right, so, anyone have a comment on this item from the public? Okay, board members, any comments or questions? No? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve, entertain a motion.
Motion to approve
1.8, sorry.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, so moved. Thank you, Tina. Okay, approving, pulling 1.13, adopt a resolution authorizing the chief probation officer to submit and sign a grant application to the Federal Bureau of Justice Assistance, BJA, to support the implementation of a specialty co-occurring mental health substance abuse treatment court program. Revenue up to $1 million if awarded. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Madam Chair. So let me start by saying we've never had a problem administering a grant, so just make that clear. So as you know, we recently also submitted for round 2 of Prop 47 funding. That particular proposal was to create a mental health diversion program for the courts. The state grant would handle the clinical side of the program, overseen by behavioral health and in conjunction with HRM, and was intended to alleviate some of the overcrowding and warehousing of our mentally ill inmate population in our jail. This particular federal grant
which is offered through the Bureau of Justice Assistance, would address co-occurring mental illness and substance abuse and would build out the judicial end of this program. It would also allow for other specialty court enhancements and increase judicial supervision and oversight within that population and in those programs. We're applying for $500,000 over the course of 48 months with in-kind match, and the grant period runs concurrent with the state grant for the clinical services piece, which starts October of this year. So just a little foundation here. So currently 25% of our inmate population in the jail falls under Penal Code 1368, which is incompetent to stand trial, and Penal Code 1026, not guilty by reason of insanity. Number that remains high due to the long wait period for Department of State hospital beds to become available for both evaluation and competency restoration efforts. Generally, this has been running somewhere between 6 and 8 months. Compared to the rest of the state, Trinity County's DSH admission rate is 947% higher than state average rates, making Trinity County one of the highest per capita users of that service. This is due to a combination of factors, the largest being our lack of local programs and resources to deal with the specific population. If we're fortunate enough to get both of these awards, I feel confident that we can better address the needs of the individuals and also use our limited jail beds to a better purpose to incarcerate the most serious and violent offenders. Any questions if there are?
I just want to, I pulled the item because after we had a great long discussion yesterday and update me on a lot of issues since we haven't been able to chat in a while, and I really wanted to highlight your efforts on this and the state grant and working with other departments in a creative fashion to solve a much needed solution. So I just wanted to kind of applaud you for going beyond what is expected of you to help find a greater solution. And working, of course, with our new sheriff has got to be a pleasure.
Definitely.
And our new DA, so thank you, and it's an issue, and I've never doubted how you guys administered your grants. So just
I appreciate that. And if I may, I'd like to...
And our new behavioral health director, my apologies.
Absolutely. And I'd also like to call out our new grants coordinator, Susie Copens. She is a very valuable resource for department heads and counties pulling grants. And I'm sure that she would also be available to assist if there's any questions on grant administration.
Correct. So that's why I pulled the item. I think, I'm in great support of what you are and the rest of those 4 department heads are trying to do, so thank you. I don't know if the board has any other questions on the item itself?
No.
Okay, comments? Any members from the public? No? Anything else from your team? No? All right.
Thank you.
Would you like this moved forward, or?
I would.
Sure.
Okay, so I would, thank you, Tim. I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept item 1.13 as presented.
Okay, this is a resolution.
Supervisor Chadwick?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Finley?
Yes.
Supervisor Morris?
Yes, all right, thank you. So, let's see, we have 10 o'clock here, and we'll take a break so they can set up the next item. So we'll take about 5, 6, 7 minute break. Everybody ready?
You're astounding.
I think your mic's not working.
And we have
What?
Mine's already wrong. Mine's on there. I don't know.
What's that question?
Okay. We are moving on to our public hearing at item 2.1 under Board of Supervisors. Conduct a public hearing to consider adopting a resolution which requests the Local Agency Formation Commission, known as LAFCO, to take proceedings for the information of a community service district to sustain ambulance services, no fiscal impact. And board members, we also received this morning a letter of support from the Fire Chiefs Association for your reference. Okay, with that,
Madam Chair?
yep,
Could we have the council explain our role in this,
excellent
in
idea.
this public hearing
Before the presentation, yeah,
before the presentation?
great idea.
Absolutely happy to do that. So before you today for determination is whether the board wants to pass a resolution. And in doing that, your resolution is not approving the formation, it's just referring it and submitting an application to LAFCO to consider the application. This can either be done by a body or through the public through a referendum process, meaning that they have to get signatures. Instead, we're bringing it to the board, have the board send it over, which can be done through a majority vote of the board after consideration and a public hearing. The public hearing was noticed properly in the newspaper, and so we're here today for the public hearing and a determination of the board if you would like to forward an application to LAFCO for the formation of this new special district.
And I have a follow-up from Keith, just to let you know, can you tell us how many board members serve on LAFCO? Oh, you can't.
I believe 4, isn't it? 4, yeah.
It's 3 plus alternate.
3 plus an alternate.
Alternate, and how many members altogether on LAFCO? 15 or something like that?
7.
7? Thank you, John.
Card access.
Just to make it clear to the public.
All right. Any other questions on our role on this item? Okay. Moving forward, we will have the representatives, Kathy Ratliff, give us a brief presentation.
And Sean.
And
Porter.
Sean, great.
I'm gonna have to push the clicker here.
And John Jelisich, who is the general president of LAFCO, is here for any technical questions as well.
Good morning. My name is Sean Flory, paramedic and general manager. Also Kathy Ratliff, paramedic administrator and paramedic for Trinity County Life Support. Together we bring to you about 60 years worth of EMS experience. Not a whole lot of public speaking experience, so bear with. Anyway, we'd like to talk to you about our restructure for ambulance service stabilization. So who are we? We are a public service nonprofit that was formed in 1993 by a small group of people whom just right after the middle of the night, the current provider took his equipment, took his ambulances and left town, leaving Trinity County without ambulance service. This small group of people with borrowed equipment put together this ambulance service, never missed one call for service. And since then, for the last 25 years, the focus has been on high quality patient care, safe transportation, along with EMS and public safety education. What do? We're your 911 ambulance service for 85% of Trinity County, covering approximately 2,700 square miles. We're staffed with one paramedic, one EMT in an ambulance in Weaverville, and another in Hayfork. Our call volume is roughly about 1,500 calls annually. We not only provide 911 ambulance service, but we also provide advanced life support interfacility transportation of critically and sick patients from Trinity Hospital to a higher level of care, such as Shasta Regional Mercy Reading, Inlow and Chico, and also multiple hospitals in the Sacramento area. What else do? We provide public safety training for all of our local allied agencies in Trinity County, our volunteer firefighters, our paid firefighters. They are all required to maintain public safety first aid, CPR, and AED training. We provide this to them at cost or to no cost. We also provide public service education such as CPR training for our local community members, along with our Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and our lifeguards, our lifeguards. And we're currently just started a program, a babysitting club, so to get babysitters, CPR, and AED trained. And we train roughly about 300 or so folks annually.
So why are we here? What's the problem? The problem is that Trinity County Life Support is struggling to keep paramedic staffing. Paramedic is the advanced life support level that we need in Trinity County. We have an unattractive shift structure that we need to throw out and adopt a structure that better protects the public and our crews. We have not long-term income challenges, and those are a high mix of Medi-Cal, Medicare payers, and also just a call volume that's based on a stable population that hasn't really changed in the last 20 years. So income is flat and expense is rising. One particular expense challenge is the California minimum wage that will increase dramatically in the next, it has started until 2023, bumps up $1 each year. With a lack of stable funding, we have struggled to keep paramedics. And now we have a structure. As a nonprofit, it's worked for 25 years, but the structure is inconsistent with some of the programs that exist out there to reimburse for Medi-Cal shortfalls. Here is the problem. This is an average year. It's 17, 18. You can see there are 4 payers up there: self-pay, Medi-Cal, Medicare, and insurance. And on the right, you can see that 3 of the 4 reimburse per call at a rate less than it costs us to run the call. And so that bottom line of insured patients, that 14%, really cannot overcome the losses of the other 3 areas. And again, there are our Medi-Cal, a year of Medi-Cal shortfall is approximately $168,000. That's our largest shortfall. And again, there are government programs that would help reimburse a government ambulance, but not a nonprofit. Here's an income and expense comparison for the last 5 years. Our board of directors, we're fortunate in our board, they understand what's important, and we've been adopting deficit budgets to protect patient care levels. If we are not there and not responding, people are waiting for care, and we have to be there. So since 2014, that's what we've been doing. You can see a couple years there, 2015, 2017, and 2018, that is almost level. Those years, we were on fire, and we were able to staff an extra ambulance to do a contract fire camp, which is important to us. Those funds can bolster our reserves, and we also, it's important for us to take care of our own firefighters, so we want to be there to do that staffing, but we cannot do it without paramedic staff, which is at risk. Where we're headed, without a change in structure and some form of support, this is where it's going. The pink is expense. And that first year, 1920, that's a $200,000 deficit. And that's just our ordinary revenues based on our patient transports, our subsidies, and the expense is the increasing wages and benefits cost. And that $200,000 deficit, unmitigated, puts our reserves at gone in 2021.
So what is needed? We need to meet emergency care responsibilities with excellence, to maintain the level of service that we have been providing. And we've been providing that very lean. We only employ 8 full-time EMTs and paramedics, 1 full-time office, our administrative assistant, where she keeps us running, helps us with our paychecks, and she also administers our subscription program, And 2 management staff, Kathy and I, that are salaried part-time at 24 hours a week each. But we want to maintain the level of service that we do currently provide. And with that, we need stable staffing and an increased ability to surge. We need to adopt an improved shift structure, and we need to restore those management hours that are left.
Steps taken. So we knew this has been coming and we know it. We've been studying it for a few years. We brought in some consultants too. One, an expert on accessing those government programs for reimbursement. The other, an expert at government-provided services. And we talked about options. We thought about affiliating with another special district in order to access those Medi-Cal reimbursements. And what we found, we talked with Trinity Hospital briefly. We talked with the Trinity PUD and Weaverville Fire Protection District about partnering. And what we found, and with the expertise of the consultant that knows the ins and outs of those programs, we exposed those partners to our pretty significant financial risk. We can't do that. We talked very briefly about, well, could we have a county run an ambulance? And the county reps that were there said, no, we don't want to run an ambulance. And the recommendation at the end of the discussion with partners and the consultants was that you need to form your own community service district, access those Medi-Cal reimbursements directly, and approach your community, your voters, for a stabilizing tax measure as the only true way to stabilize ambulance service in advanced life support care.
And with that stable funding, we'll be able to implement a 48-96 shift schedule. We'll be able to pay our employees 48 hours instead of 16 hours of the 24 hours that they currently work. We'll be able to add medical staff, taking our current full-time staff from 8 to 12 EMTs and paramedics. We'll be able to reduce fatigue, and we'll be able to improve our surge capability. Highway 299 being a major thoroughfare through here, the potential for mass casualty incidents and stuff is very likely. We'll be able to restore that management staff, and we'll be able to protect that low-cost public safety training for our volunteers and for our community.
Without stable funding, we've been holding it together for a long time with too few people. And without a change and without stability, our level of care will suffer. Patients will wait for ambulances, and we don't want that to happen. We believe strongly that we need to protect advanced life support staffing, and we need to be there and available and able to surge when calls happen. Our recruitment will decline and advanced life support service coverage will decline, and it has. It has been effective the last 3 years. 2017, we staffed our Hayfork ambulance 25% of the time with all basic life support staff, which means 2 EMTs rather than an EMT and a paramedic, due to lack of paramedics to have on duty. And that affects the Hayfork side, but it also affects the whole thing, because if that basic life support crew deems that that patient requires advanced life support services, our Weaverville ambulance goes and provides that care and takes that patient. And so that will delay care to every area. Our best community outcome is a healthy service, obviously. We have done 5-year projections and come up with a 68 per parcel tax that will be submitted with our LAFCO application if we're successful today. And we're continuing to study that tax, the fairness of it, the structure of it during this process, and especially during the LAFCO process. But it is our goal to bring the information and the discussion to voters at the March 2020 election.
And in closing, if I could just to speak from the heart a little bit, my full-time job is a critical care flight paramedic for REACH out of Reading, and this picture was taken about 2 months ago as I was landing to rendezvous with a patient at Douglas City. My service area encompasses the entirety of Northern California, and for the last 7 years I've had the opportunity to work with multiple ambulance agencies, fire departments, you name it. Before I came to work for Trinity Life Support about 3 years ago, I used to always was just amazed at the level of care that was given. And not just the level of care, but the patient advocacy. You know, I would, these instances where we do rendezvous with sick patients, I can actually tell you my scene time from skids down to skids up there was 5 minutes, and which is unheard of in an aircraft. And that is solely because all the work was completely done, a report was done. I was able to hop in the back of the ambulance, take this stroke patient, and transport in 10 minutes in the airtime down. In all these areas that I have been to, it's not just a basic general ambulance service that you receive. The attitude of all of the employees that is, we don't just want to get you from point A to point B alive. We want to fix you in the in-between time. And so, in feeling that way, when Aunt Kathy asked me a few years ago if I would come up and work part-time as the clinical director and then kind of move into the general management position, that decision was a no-brainer. I love the staff, I love the people. I cannot tell you enough, and not speaking biasly, the service that you guys are provided here goes above and beyond. And it's not just basic paramedic, advanced life support care, it's critical care, it's something we're able to tap into other providers. I have nurses at REACH, that 25 and 30-year flight nurses that come up and do training and education. Absolutely amazing place. And I am very blessed to work with and for these individuals. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Sean, will you do me a favor and state your last name? I didn't mean to not state your full name, so.
It's okay, it's Poore, P-O-O-R-E.
Thank you.
And there's an accent over the E.
All right. Thank you for the great presentation.
You're welcome, thank you.
Supervisor Groves, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I didn't see in there, if you become a special district, how much more reimbursement money that would mean to you?
It's a good question, and it's difficult to project. There are 2 programs that reimburse for Medi-Cal shortfalls, and that's your question, is that correct?
Yes, so, well, you have a tax that looked like the tax would solely fill the gap from what your income is today, but you didn't show any income from.
The Medi-Cal shortfall programs are IGT, which you're probably familiar with, and GEMT. IGT is under fire, and President Trump is threatening to throw it out. It's difficult to predict what we can get. That's Medi-Cal managed care, and that's the largest piece of our Medi-Cal population. The GEMT piece is small. So it's hard to predict what we will receive from those programs because they may not continue. For one, the IGT may not continue.
Okay. And then secondly, you said $68 parcel tax. Is that a residential parcel tax or everybody?
Currently, that is everybody, and that's what we are still reviewing.
And how many parcels in your sphere of influence?
Our sphere is very similar to Trinity Hospitals or Mountain Communities. Influence 9,500, 9,600 parcels.
All right, that's all I have.
Follow up with Supervisor Groves. You will also be receiving property tax sharing as a CSD. Is that correct, or? Because most of my CSDs get a little bit of property tax.
Only those that were getting money before Prop 13.
Okay. Thank you, Gerald.
Yeah.
You might want to raise that $6 to $8 a little bit per parcel. I know, it's tough.
It's a hard thing
Or
to
at
ask.
least
It's
leave
a
an
hard thing
option
to
in the
ask for.
future.
There's quite a bit of pride in there, so it's been really hard
Okay.
to kind of come up with a number and, you know, and to ask the community for it. We've done it so many years on our own with grant writing and, you know, I don't think she could move a pencil any quicker with all the grants she's.
Oh, I understand.
So this is a special tax, so it would be two, or maybe I'm jumping ahead to, if this gets to LAFCO, but this would be 2 votes? Is that at the same time concurrent that you would be voting for a district and then you would be voting for the tax? Would the district be at 51% vote and the tax 66?
It is a special tax, it'll be 66%, correct?
And this would be a special tax.
It would be, because it's for a specific purpose.
But you could form a district at 51.
Correct.
So I have, John?
Oh.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you.
I'm John, Executive Officer for LAFCO. One of the conditions of approval that will be attached to the resolution from LAFCO would be that if the tax fails, the district formation will fail.
So I have a quick question. What is the name? I couldn't find it, the name of the new district if formed.
That is under discussion. In our LAFCO application, we had listed Trinity County Life Support so that we didn't have to change our ambulances. But after further discussion, we probably need to take the county out of that because it has caused some confusion for years. And so we don't have that piece, but it should be minus the county.
So we don't need to do that today?
I think we do. It's part of the resolution that you're designating the name as Trinity County Life Support Service District. So if you want a modified name, you need to put that in the resolution.
Would that be
Trinity
appropriate?
Life Support CSD.
Sure, if that's what you want.
And now we're doing it on the fly.
That's how we roll here.
LAFCO does have a lot of authority and they can simply change it like that $68. We'll be looking at that much more closely in terms of how that's generated. Based on review and I met with the district in the workshop session and before the report, the $68 works, but we may need to change that around a little bit. And I agree that the word county should be taken out for reasons obviously you all know that.
So would that be helpful if we did that today or let LAFCO do that?
Doesn't matter to me, but if council's supposed to be comfortable having me take it out today, then that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, any other questions for now from the board?
Just one. So this will not serve beyond Big Bar?
Our service area cuts off there at Cedar Flat Bridge,
Okay.
and beyond that, Coupon ambulance is the response.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess that does bring, does the Hoopa ambulance service have a parcel tax in those areas?
No, Coupon is a tribal ambulance, so they have direct access to some of these funds that we are trying to access.
Okay, and that's enough for them.
Well, they're pretty subsidized pretty well by Humboldt County. I'm not an expert on Coupon, but I do believe that's correct.
Well, that's nice, Humboldt to do that.
They do it for Star
Yeah, they do.
down south.
Okay.
They'll bill us.
Okay, any questions from the public on this issue? Anyone?
Kate Graves from Lewiston. I have a couple of questions because as much as we need ambulances, we're basically doing a special district for a business. And that concerns me. Also, there's a lot of volunteer ambulance services. Is any of this money going to go to them? Are we gonna expand it to the whole county? Or are we doing this for a business? Also, if we do this for this business, 'cause that's what it is, right? It's not an ambulance service, it's this ambulance service. Can another business come in, because there's quite a few that do, like the Western United States? And can they become the ambulance business service for that district? The other thing about the money is, not to worry about it because it always goes up. So people are gonna vote for this, and then if it becomes a special district, they don't seem to be taking into account, and maybe they are somewhere, what it costs to be a special district. what it costs for the elections, et cetera. And it would also be nice and very informative to the public if you explained what LAFCO is, because I would like to know what LAFCO is, and I've read up on it some. I won't go any further than that, but this whole thing, if you want it to be so people know what they're voting for, people may go, yeah, I'm willing to pay that to make sure we have an ambulance service for this area. But, you know, you're loading up a lot of stuff on people's parcel taxes. And the other thing is that people don't pay them, you foreclose on their property. And that becomes overburdensome over time. So I know that we pay a lot for insurance, and then we have used the ambulance, and I'm grateful. And we paid. We paid our co-pay and our insurance paid. So now we'll be paying on our parcel. Do you see where I'm going with this? That becomes a problem. So as far, I mean, I know when I was in high school, the people who had the ambulance were struggling. It's a burden in this county as we depopulate this county. And this county has been depressed economically, socially for a long time. And, you know, just look at Detroit. And you just look at it and go, oh my God, Trinity County's Detroit with a better view. And we're not getting any better. People are leaving, our economy's getting worse. Anyone want to go buy a building downtown Main Street, right there? There's quite a few for sale. So, and it's not getting any better. And it's not a good idea to stack more burden on property owners, because you're just gonna sell it to people that are gonna dump on it again.
Yeah.
Since this is a parcel tax, then only the property owners have the right to vote on it, and it's a voted tax. So you better take that into consideration, because Adams Apartments has 13 votes, Capelli's trailer park up in Junction City has 14 votes. So, I mean, you guys, property owners are the only ones who get the vote on a tax that's on property.
All right, so I'll clarify. I know Margaret did earlier. This is just an item to move forward to LAFCO process. We are not taxing at the moment, it's a proposed tax. If LAFCO says this does not pencil out, it doesn't move forward. This is just to move this item to the LAFCO process, and if LAFCO deems that it can move forward, then it would go to the ballot sometime next year. So, John, would you like to add to what I just said for clarification's sake of the process, that we're not taxing today? And a definition of LAFCO.
Sure. Before World War II, or shortly after, most of these special districts were formed by the state legislature. After World War II, and starting in the early 60s, the legislature noticed that there's a huge amount of urban sprawl. And you know, from the LAFCO presentation, that's something that's always mentioned in LAFCO. Here in our county, it's been mostly special district formations and expansions that have occurred. So LAFCO, Local Agency Formation Commission, is a creation of the state legislature. They pretty much gave their authority to the 58 local LAFCOs. And LAFCOs are not part of the county, they're separate. In our county, there's a 7-member commission, 3 members from the Board of Supervisors plus an alternate, 2 members selected by the special districts plus an alternate, and 2 public members plus an alternate. And they're the ones that would be reviewing this. But I don't know if I answered Kate's question.
I think you did.
In this instance also, John had mentioned the property tax. It will be a registered voter election, not done by property owners. In this instance, there's a wasting construction.
All right.
Did you already know?
Yeah, anything else since John's up here? No? Great, thank you, John. Any questions from board members?
I have one, Madam Chair. So on the motion to be made, are we excluding number 4, the proposed name for the district, and allowing LAFCO to work on that, or are we proposing a name?
We would propose the name.
The code requires that each of those elements be included in your resolution, so you do have to do that. You are the applicant, so you have to make that determination, but you can modify it at this time, if that's the board's pleasure.
So if you caught that they were suggesting.
If I may ask Kathy to restate the name that you were hoping.
I have one board member here.
Speak
Oh,
slowly.
It's not a quorum.
Trinity Life Support Community Service District.
Did you write that?
I did, it takes out the county, yes.
Okay, so, okay.
So we will strike the
TLSCSD.
TLSCSC.
So just removing the word county.
Yeah.
So are you ready for a motion?
I am.
So I would make a motion to present with the alternative name.
You got a second on that. I get it.
Trinity Life Support Community Service District.
Correct.
Okay, do I have a second?
Yes, you just got one.
I didn't
Come
hear
on.
you.
I need a mic.
I know. All right, I have a motion and a second. Is this one needed by a roll call? Yes.
Supervisor Finley?
Yes.
Supervisor Chadwick?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Morris?
Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you for all your work and putting all this together. It's not easy, so,
We will see you at LAFCO.
yeah. Now John takes the baton from here. Thank you, John, for your help too, and Darryl, I know you've helped them, so. Okay. Moving on to our next item, 2.2, conduct a public hearing regarding potential unmet transit needs that are unreasonable to meet. Pardon me?
Or reasonable.
Reasonable. Just think if all of you are paying attention.
Probably none of the mics are really working.
Yeah.
I know that's been watching John Bell. Yeah.
So Rick just gave me this today.
Well, you're such a pro at it.
Yeah. Polly Chapman, Trinity County Transportation Commission.
Yeah.
So as you all know, we receive TDA funds, Transit Development Act funds, to operate our transit systems and some of our special services, like the service that we provide with HRN to allow people to get gas vouchers and bus passes to go to their non-emergency medical appointment. So prior to making those allocations, not directly related to public transportation or those services, the Transportation Commission must annually go through this unmet transit needs process that we seem to confuse you with every year. So in doing that, annually we post and we advertise, we look for comments from the public. We advertise on the buses to see if there are any transit needs that we should review. We also meet with our Social Service Transportation Advisory Council, and at that time we review any letters or comments that we have received. We met with STAC in March, and at that time we had one comment, and that was for a service between Weaverville and Hayford early in the morning, which, we talked about it at that meeting, and at that time we did not feel like that was reasonable to meet at this time. Rick also was in High Palm, and there was a mention of service to High Palm one day a week. We weren't able to talk about that at SPAC because we didn't actually have a formal comment, but I wanted to note that. And at this time, we are working with a consultant. We're bringing a consultant on board right now to update our short-range transit development plan, which gets updated every 5 years. And at that time, we'll kind of go through a whole unmet needs process. So those consultants will take public comments from all over the county that will be reviewed and put into that 5-year plan. So based on that, what we would like to do right now is open hearing up for any public comment. And then once you hear the public comments and give staff direction, we'll go back and analyze, review, and then come back on the 16th with a resolution to pass either that there are public transportation needs that can be met or not met at that time.
Okay. Any technical questions for Polly at the moment before I open it up? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the High and Palm issue, that was also there, simply Rick fielded it to be in place as an urgency bus, since the road might fall apart at any moment.
Correct, there was that, but he also mentioned that they would like service
Okay.
1 day a week. And we talked about that
I
years
know.
ago when you were on STAC, and we had hoped to work that out with Southern Trinity
So fix
at
the
that
road.
time, but that didn't happen.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone from the public wishing to comment? No? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. So, what do you need from us? Just a motion? There's no direction?
We used to do this in 1 meeting, but now we do it in 3, so we bring you the resolution to adopt the unmet need definitions. Today is the public comment, to receive public comment, and then the next time we'll bring back the resolution for you to support.
Okay.
Yes.
So I don't hear any direction or any other comments from the board?
No.
So, all right. Thank you,
Okay.
Polly. See you next. Did you have something else?
No, you actually closed the public meeting.
Public hearing.
Yeah. So it's closed.
Okay, well, you didn't.
So I heard none.
I know, but it's an official, close that meeting. This is
Ah.
a meeting within a meeting.
All right. All right, really, okay. It's closed, in case anyone's wondering. We're closed, so thank you. We'll see you next week. Or 2 weeks from now. All right, so we are moving on to reports from department heads.
You mentioned High and Palm Road. Rick Tippett, Director of Transportation. We did have a little bit more slippage out there, so I pulled a local geotech from out of Sacramento to come up and take a look at it. We did block it, and because of the continuing deterioration, while the road is still safe, we want to hold it in the condition it is, so we moved the K-rail back and we imposed a weight limit on the road, which should keep everything held together. We are going to cut in a temporary detour. We're going to move about 12 feet into the hillside, and that would put it on more competent soil, and that should hold us over until such time that we get it reconstructed, which will be with the assistance of FHW Central Code 1.
Did you put a sign up yet? A weight limit?
Yeah, the sign, the weight limit sign was put up on, we didn't announce it,
It's okay, that's the most concern from constituents.
because, yeah, we figured if we did announce it, then everybody would run out there with their heavy trucks.
You got it. As long as there's a sign up, constituents are going to be happy, and as long as somehow you enforce it or reinforce it simply because they're going to start bringing in soils and other items at this point. Thank you, Rick.
Well, I would, I'll again solicit the assistance of the sheriff and the CHP. It's a hard place to get to because of where it's located, but maybe they can go out there on a Monday morning and catch the soils truck coming down on the wrong side of it and go from there.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Thanks for the signs.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
No.
All right, thank you. Any other department head? Sheriff?
Thanks, Chris. No, you're welcome. Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Sure.
Oh.
Board members, just a quick update. Last year, the sheriff's office was able to secure a contract to upgrade our records management system, jail management system, and our CAD system. That project is moving forward rapidly. We're hoping to go live in the middle of May. We're about halfway through our training process. All employees are being exposed to certain modules that they will most likely have most activity with. Mobile digital computers will be going in starting next month, and GPS tracking on every one of our vehicles. We just received a new supply of handheld radios, which will integrate very well with the system. So I just wanted to let you know that the money that you agreed to spend last year is moving forward, and we're doing very well with it. Any questions on that?
We were just wondering about that, so thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
Any other?
Polly did mention to me something that I'd like to make sure everybody's aware of, is that transits are free on Thursdays for this month, correct?
The month of April.
The month of April. So if you need to get somewhere on Thursday and you're short on change, Trinity Transit will get you there.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other department head? Okay, seeing none, CAO?
Nothing new to report.
I do understand that you did attend the Caltrans workshop.
I did, yes.
It didn't go so well, and
It was less than productive, but we had quite a few members of the committee show up and voice their concerns. So whether Caltrans met the request, they did hear the concerns of the public.
and it was Supervisor Brown and I field a lot of calls trying to get the information that kind of was expected at that meeting, so we'll have more of an update hopefully next time. As we meet with them this week to get whatever they were supposed to present didn't quite come off that way.
It did not.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, Supervisor Chadwick.
I don't have my journal to say what I did.
Okay.
I apologize.
No worries. Supervisor Groves?
I had no out-of-county travel, but I do have a request for CAO. We've been fielding questions about the local equity grant out of the cannabis money out of the state. And if next meeting you could give a brief description of what we're doing, if we're doing, why we're not doing that.
If you recall, I sent you an email, the state pulled that back.
I thought they disclosed that session.
They pulled back the notice of announcement, and they're reworking something, is the last just late last week, so.
Well, if we could make that an update, and then
Yeah.
what our plans, if any, are for this moving forward, so people can at least understand what's going on.
Okay, Supervisor Fernandez.
Yes, follow up with your Caltrans public meeting and all that kind of stuff at Trinity County Fish and Game Advisory Board. We also started to move forward with nothing. The commissioners decided not to do that, but I did speak to the public that was there. There were about 15 members, and they were very distraught over what they didn't hear.
Right, exactly.
Didn't understand, and weren't told by Caltrans at the meeting.
Exactly.
Other than that, no out-of-county travel.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Brown.
I have no out-of-county travel and nothing to report.
Okay, out-of-county travel was for the North Coast Air Quality meeting a week or so ago. And, all right, moving on to ad hoc committees, commercial cannabis ordinance amendments.
We're still on a
Yeah.
holding pattern.
So nothing's changed there. As Supervisor Groves pointed out, there's been inquiries about the equity program. There is, appears to be on hold, and who and what can apply for it, so more details to follow. Federal lands legislation. So as you guys requested last meeting, I believe it was last meeting or two, to go back to the collaborative. And we will have a collaborative meeting in mid-April, if I recall correctly. And I was not at the meeting of the collaborative that you were, Supervisor Groves, last year, and you guys kind of did go over some of it at that point. And looking back at the notes, because I want to make sure we're prepped properly for this meeting, the collaborative decided not to take a vote, I believe, on the item.
Well, the meeting I attended really wasn't, the collaborative was asking what the county was going to do. So they weren't really considering it, they just wanted to know what our positions were, what our actions were, what was going on. So it wasn't them discussing if it was a good plan or a bad plan, it was just learning what the county's thoughts were.
So what are you hoping to, nothing's changed?
Nothing's changed with, again, the Congressman Huffman staff's under the impression that the collaborative has voted full support for this, which I know not to be true. I would like the collaborative to discuss the plan as is, since there seems to be no room for negotiation or changing, so it's basically a thumbs up or thumbs down or a neutral from the collaborative.
Okay, I think we're hoping to get John Driscoll there for clarification. I'm not sure that there isn't complete, like it's completely shut down in terms of requests from counties, but don't quote me.
Well,
I know you heard differently.
well, what the word was is the bill is going to be submitted as is, that they will always take input, but they're not changing.
Okay. So, Pat, do you have any questions or answers, because since you have to prepare
Questions
for
or
this
answers?
meeting?
No.
Yeah.
I don't. I have a,
That's okay.
Well, that's working out.
Since you have to facilitate the meeting, I just want to make sure.
So Pat Frost, and I'm here as the rabbit herder of the collaborative, the facilitator of the Trinity County Collaborative. So I was just looking for clarification on how to structure that discussion at the board meeting. I think I'm getting that from Keith. I mean, it's a little odd because the role of the collaborative is to provide recommendations to the Board of Supervisors for them to take action. But I believe the board has already taken action on the bill last late summer, early fall. So just gonna need some help on how to get the collaborative to feel like they really, that their input has any meaning.
So, well, the question would basically be, we have made a statement, we did send it to the collaborative previously because there was a time pressure.
Right.
At this time, the collaborative could recommend us to
Do something different.
do something different.
Okay.
Or they can stay and say, no, you're supportive in this. I think the key is understanding that it's not going to be a debate over, you know, we want to move the line 5 feet here or, you know, change things.
And my understanding is that John Driscoll, that, you know, Huffman's aide will be here, as will, I believe, Ryan Henson from Cal Weiler. So they can, you know, because frankly, I don't know what the current, because there is no bill filed, right? I mean, it was filed, it failed. To get anywhere, it has to be refiled. And from my conversations with John, they think it could be filed before our meeting on April 19th.
So if the bill is refiled, would that be an opportunity for the collaborative and the board to look at a new bill since it's filed under probably a new number?
The number, yeah, I mean, that's
And a
kind
new
of
year?
what I think that's what it, I think that's how I'll structure it, yeah.
Okay. See if
Even
that's
though it may
legal.
have the same language.
See if it's legal.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for the clarifications.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions, just give me a call.
Okay, and I guess I should ask, so the supervisors that are
the collaborative members are Judy and
Jeremy.
right?
Mhm.
So are you both intending to be there? Okay. And that would mean Keith, you would probably not be there. Okay.
Unless Keith wants to go. It's up to you.
We can discuss that later.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, as a member of a collaborative, may I ask a question pertaining to that?
Sure.
I'll just be real quick. Okay, Grace from Lewiston, since I would like to know who told Jared, Representative Huffman's people that the collaborative approved this, because it's false. And they use that information when they talk to other people that know nothing about this to show approval. And that needs to be, I mean, they're not gonna take our input, but that is false and it needs to be removed. And I would like to know who told them that? Because it's,
I had no idea who told him that. I don't think the, forget her name, apologize for that, Sue or, anyway, his lead on this in Washington, I don't think she know who told him that, but it's just, to her, that's what's happening. She discussed that there was all sorts of foresters in the area that thought this was a wonderful idea, and that the collaborative was on board, and
well, it just seems like, and I get you're talking to them and they're ignoring you, but they're providing false
Yes.
information.
And I made it very clear to her that that was false. And one reason to go to the collaborative is so that it can be official.
Except it's a moot point. It's
Well-
correcting the lie after the fact. So I realize I'm just throwing it out there because that's important. That's the information they're going
So
on. and
it
it's
has been,
false.
it was clarified at the June meeting as well, back last June, so we'll clarify it again. The collaborative has not officially taken position. Ideas out of the collaborative happened and was suggested perhaps, and that's where the confusion is, so we will address it at the collaborative meeting.
And maybe Mr. Driscoll could be an avenue to speed that up.
He will be there, I'm told.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna move on. Oh. So, Margaret, am I able to allow them on this? I have a board member that's uncomfortable with this.
The board members will have to leave if they want, we'll just note it in the record.
No, but am I allowed to allow for more comment on this? Okay.
About the collaborative?
Well, this item, this is the Federal Lands Committee, so
Huffman's bill?
we're talking about the ad hoc federal legislation,
Make sure it's limited to that.
and that's all it's
The agenda
limited to.
item.
And it will be addressed at the collaborative in April. It is April.
Well, the part about all sorts of foresters are approving this.
You can, I would suggest you come to the collaborative if you'd like.
Oh, I will.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And I do. Haven't
Yes, you
missed
do.
it.
Yes, you
Thank
do. Okay.
we're done on the subject, so we can adjourn that.
We are done on the subject.
I was gonna ask the sheriff to fire a few lines out there.
Okay. He knows we've moved on to the next ad hoc? Okay, so the next ad hoc, and we only had that little discussion just for clarification, so our facilitator could be, understand and real clear on what you need to do to prep for our meeting later in April, so. Retail cannabis ordinance.
Let's see, we had a meeting on Monday and went over the agenda outline for the April 20th meeting at the fairgrounds. Find some of the points to discuss. And we looked at a few other counties' ordinances pertaining to retail, and you have anything else to add?
So, just a clarification for ad hoc to ad hoc. I know Supervisor Chadwick, you had asked if we had any backup information on our ad hoc. Due to Brown Act issues, we can't, you guys are starting clean and have to move forward without, else we'd have some Brown Act issues. So just want to make sure you guys are clear about that. You certainly, and I encourage you to work with council and Rick. If you haven't already met with them, I would encourage you to do so they can set you up in crafting an ordinance with the particulars that you want in there before it goes to the planning commission. And you just need to schedule with them and they'll help get you moving if that's an issue.
And we were just hoping that if there had been any previous questions, input from the citizens of Trinity County, any foundational work, that it would be passed forward, so we wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. I understand the Brown Act, but since we're overlapping with team members, it just seemed like a way to prevent us from not utilizing our time to the most effective way. So we appreciate the Brown Act, but we also realize that the cannabis subject has been 3+ years in the making, so we didn't know if there was already anything in the works.
Well,
And
we
if
were,
there had, we would have been.
yeah,
able
we were
to-
about to tackle that, as you recall, that was on the last license to tackle. So it's, you have a fairly, even if we had an ordinance ready to go, we wouldn't be able to share it with you. So it is a clean slate. You guys can look at other county ordinances to get ideas, and Rick can certainly sit down with you as well as Margaret on zoning issues and also drafting the actual ordinance. So,
I'd just like to put kudos into the planning department. They have provided maps and definitions and some clarifications. They've been outstanding. So I don't know if Rick is in here, but kudos to the planning department and specifically the cannabis group. They've gone out of their way to make us feel comfortable in their space. So thank you.
and I will say Margaret has many hours of crafting ordinances on this subject, so she has it pretty much turnkey, well, not quite, but I don't think it will take you much time if you guys spend a couple of meetings with her and Rick, so. Okay, anything else? All right, moving on to county matters. These items, here's John. Thank you. These items include non-routine or controversial matters and are listed by department. A member of the board or staff may request that an item be heard out of order. Board members? Good. Okay. Moving on to human resources, item 4.1. Good morning, Michelle. Okay. Take the following actions in Health and Human Services Department, Human Services Division, effective March 31st, 2019. Approve the job description, salary range, and add to the departmental position listing the following MSS classifications. Eligibility specialty trainee at range G155, eligibility specialist 1 at range G160, eligibility specialist 2 at range G170, eligibility specialist 3 at range G180, and eligibility specialist supervisor at range M215. Number 2, modify the allocation list in the Health and Human Service Department, Human Services Division, to replace 15 allocations for eligibility worker 1, 2, eligibility worker 3, maximum of 4, and 3 allocations for eligibility worker supervisor with 15 eligibility specialist trainee. eligibility specialist 1, 2, eligibility specialist 3, maximum 4, and 3 eligibility specialists supervisor. Okay. Number 3, I gotta go through this whole list, right? Just checking. Number 3, pursuant to Trinity County Code Section 2.60.360, reclassify the following employees. Employee ID number 1603, eligibility worker 3, eligibility worker, eligibility specialist 3, G180/G. Employee ID number 2294, eligibility worker 3, eligibility specialist 3, G180/D. Employee ID 1868, eligibility worker 2, eligibility specialist 2, recommended step G170/F. Employee ID 2083, eligibility worker 2, eligibility specialist 2, range step G70/E. Employee ID number 2236, eligibility worker 2, eligibility specialist 2, recommended step G170/C. Employee ID number 2328, eligibility worker 2, eligibility specialist 2, range step recommendation G170/C. Employee ID number 2327, eligibility worker 2, eligibility specialist 2, recommended step G17/B. Employee ID number 2309, eligibility worker 2, eligibility specialist 2, recommended step 170/B. Employee ID number 2309, eligibility worker 2, eligibility specialist 2, range step G17/C. Employee ID number 2414, eligibility worker 1, ES trainee eligibility specialist, that was trainee, range step G155/A. Employee ID number 1716, supervisor eligibility, supervisor eligibility specialist, range step M215/E. Employee ID number 2264, supervisor eligibility specialist, range step 215/D. And the last one, employee ID 2121, eligibility specialist, supervisor, and range step M215/A. And then, number 4, remove the following merit systems, MSSS classifications, eligibility worker 1, 2, and 3, and eligibility worker supervisor. Approximate cost and salary and benefits per month for an eligibility specialist trainee at A step is $4,211. Eligibility step 1 at A step is $43.86. Eligibility specialist 2 at A step is $47.63. Eligibility specialist 3 at A step is $51.80. And eligibility specialist supervisor at A step $71.70. Did I miss anything? Great. Is there any water?
We're done.
Yeah.
Maybe the last meeting, my request item was 1 sentence, so.
You're making up for it.
Yeah, okay. So, under contract with CalHR, CPS HR Consulting Services provides human resource services for the Department of Social Services, as well as the Department of Child Support Services, and interagency merit system counties. In July of 2016, CalHR distributed to counties a finalized job analysis and classification study of the eligibility worker classification series. They adopted the new title of eligibility specialist to replace the outdated title of eligibility worker. However, the counties were given the option to use their existing titles as their working titles. And at that time, Trinity County adopted to not make any changes.
This year, CPS is requesting that any counties who did not adopt the new classification do so effective March 31st, as they will no longer be able to support recruitments for the outdated classification series. The nudge. Due to the long training period required for this classification series, the department and HR, we evaluated it, and the department is interested in adopting the new classification series, which also includes a new classification, which is the training, easy for us. So I've listed those there in the staff report. The department would like the training level to be assigned what the current eligibility worker 1, which is our entry-level position, and then increase the 1, 2, and 3 by 5% according to the salary. The supervisor classification is actually in alignment with other similar supervisor classifications with the department at M215, so they are not recommending an increase. We've met and conferred with the union. They're in support of these changes. Okay, so requesting, I want to read the whole thing again, but as it's noted in the staff report, the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Board members, questions? Members of the public?
You have here the approximate cost of salary and benefits. You have an eligibility specialist at range A, but when you look at the list here, you go all the way up to G. So what's the cost of the G level?
If you have it handy.
I don't know that I have all of that here, but I'm going to check for a moment. I've always been directed just to list the A's, but the G for which classification?
Specialist 3?
At G, which is a longevity step.
Right.
The monthly is $4,137.82.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't go up that much. Right. Thanks.
Thank you, Shelley. Supervisor Chandler?
Shelley, these are standardized amounts that are uniform. These are not specific to Trinity County, correct?
The salaries?
The salaries, when you identify them, that these salaries, the way that they are identified is not unique to Trinity County. These are standardized classifications.
The salary schedule, it is a standardized, I can't tell you if other counties, they do an A, B, C, D plus longevity step. So it would be very similar to ours, yes, if that's what you're asking.
Yes, thanks.
With that, if there's not any other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to accept item 4.1 from Human Resources under item 4.12, 2, 3, 4 as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second that?
Thank you both. This is not a resolution. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, so carried. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Moving on to transportation, item 4.2, adopt a resolution which establishes funding priorities, approves the fiscal year 2019-2020 list of projects, work plan for funding from the road maintenance and rehab account for fiscal year 2019-2020. Revenue in the amount of $1.7 million, I might add, to the future road maintenance and rehab account. Okay, thank you.
The SB1 was passed last year, or in 2017, that established new road funds for the department. And as part of that package that was approved, there was monies that were set aside specifically for road maintenance and rehabilitation. One of the things that the governor at the time and legislature realized is that there needed to be full accountability of how that money is spent. Even you probably recall we recently had Proposition 6 where there's a lot of accusations that that money went back to Sacramento. And I'd say, well, no, you can just look right at the RMRA account, because we have to get it board approved. We have to discuss it publicly and have it approved for what we're going to work on. So when SB 1 was passed, I went back and had the board enact priorities, and those priorities were the 4 priorities, which were to match disaster relief, and then use the funds to match state and federal aid projects, and then what was left over to use some 70% for what our pavement management program said to use, and 30% recommended on staff, and then other projects as the board seemed fit for the last priority. This year's allocation initially started out at about $500,000. This year it's at $1.7 million, so it's kind of climbed to where I expect it to peak from here, and will go up about 5% every year from here on out. But it's gone up quite a bit, and it is essentially money that we did not have before. So it is extra money beyond what we were having kind of back in 2012, 2013 timeframe. Looking at the programs that we have going on right now, is we're still trying to recover from the 2017 storms. We did recently start work with FHWA to fix $4.4 million worth of damage. I used some of the secure rural schools and reserve funds to seed the monies that I need to pay to get the work done. And unfortunately, with disasters, you have to do the work, pay for it, and then wait to get reimbursed. You have to do it all within a certain time frame. And so we're really squeezed for a lot of time to produce a lot of work and time in a very tight manner, and those are things that we're working on. But with the $4.5 million that are being worked on by FHWA, we had to produce a match because some of the work was ineligible. We had to produce a match of $623,000. And looking at what's left over, we have about $2.21 million worth of match I need to produce to finish up the work, and we're supposed to be done with design by September, and then moving into construction over the next couple of years. So when I was looking at the $1.7 million that we had, it'd be easy to say, well, let's apply all of that to the $2.21 million, but there are some commitments and some things that we'd like to get done that we believe would be appropriate. And so we kind of took a look at maybe using half of the money towards this recovery, and then specifying some particular projects that we wanted to hit. And I listed those projects out as a single chip seal on Big Creek Road, which has had an awful lot of traffic recently from some of the activities that are going on there. We want to chip seal from the end of Post Mile 3 to the end of the road. And then we want double chip seal a small piece of Van Dusen Road near the Federal Lands Access Project that we were doing. We missed that from earlier. And then as I had earlier, we were committed to fixing a mile of Xenia Lake Mountain Road between Xenia Road and Kitten Palm. And so I still wanted to continue on with that. And then we have a small pavement failure that's getting pretty bad at Trinity Dam Boulevard. Right when you come to Highway 299, you make kind of you jog around the corner of that right turn, and all the pavement's breaking apart right there. And matter of fact, there was a license plate laying on the ground this last summer, so it was thinking we should put that on the priority list. And then finally, we wanted to establish a slurry seal program, which is a slurry seal is kind of in between a fog seal, which is just oil on the road, and a chip seal. It's kind of a sand mix, and you put it down, it gives you another 5 years to 10 years on the pavement. It's a quick and easy fix, a little bit more expensive, but it's a good material to seal up the road. And we wanted to do that on particularly roads and neighborhoods that were very short sections, and then around some of the school zones where there's a lot of heavy residential traffic. So in that, we identified $877,000 worth of projects, so we wanted to leave the remainder of $900,000 towards disaster recovery. Now, there are some other small projects, the Trinity Lane, we've been talking about getting done, and so we were gonna use road funds to, we've done a temporary solution on it, but we want to go back in and make a more permanent solution. And then we want to buy equipment for the RMRA account for our crews to go and do patch paving, not overlays, but patch pave rather than grader patch sections of road that we're going to be chip sealing the year after. And so we want to be to where it's our crews that do patching and chip seals, and then we hire contractors to do the paving. And the reason, one of the biggest reasons I wanted to kind of focus on that approach is those folks that do chip seals and patch paving during the summer are the same folks that will be available during the winter to plow the roads. So we want to make sure that we keep them busy full-time year-round. And then finally is we wanted to start on a bridge on Summit Creek Road. There's one low water crossing still remaining, and that's been on our to fix list for a while. So the $1.31 million worth of storm damage match will be identified as construction progresses over the next couple of years. So my point is we're not going to quite get out of that need for that money, but we'll eventually hopefully stop talking about that when we've expended all the money to get everything fixed. And I do intend to get everything fixed. So with that, I did include some of the resolutions or laws pertaining to RMRA. There is an RMRA proposed project list, and then I included also the list of the roads that were damaged in the 2017 storm, which you've seen before. With that, I can answer any questions.
Yes, thank you. Are you looking at?
He says no.
Okay, so just jumping back a little bit, the seed money that was used for emergency funding, is that being replenished? Am I hearing that correctly? That you're able to replenish that seed money for emergency funding?
Well, it depends on how Washington works. They, for instance, an ER program, which is emergency relief, which is any of our busier roads, like our minor collectors or major collectors or minor arterials, that money is paid for through FHWA. And the government gets, in California, and well actually US-wide, gets $100 million for that program. While in California alone, we had $1.5 billion worth of damage in the ER program in 2017. So what has to happen is there has to be supplemental augmentation to that budget done by Washington. And so what we do is we get the design done and get it listed, and then we wait for other projects to get reimbursed so that we can pay for this project to go in and construct. And that's why it's not uncommon to see disaster projects sometimes take up to 5 to 10 years to be constructed, because what they're waiting for is they're waiting for that money to eventually be freed up. And it usually comes from allocations from other disasters. But they'll say, let's go back and put some more money in this account.
So, but going forward, it sounds like you are trying to expand our emergency fund money at this point, and you're utilizing the SB1 for that?
Well, yeah, in SB1, I have to, or in federal money, it never comes free without some sort of match. And ER or FEMA money is 75% FEMA, 25% local match. And in ER money, it's 88.57 or 53 that they produce, and we have to produce 11.47 match. So it's what I'm trying to produce out of the RMRA is matching funds.
Okay.
But if I have loose change, I always pick it up and try to do more projects so that we can get further along with our recovery and hope to get reimbursed. It's a very, very awkward program that we all struggle with. Quite honestly, sometimes I don't think FEMA wants to make it easy for you to recover.
That was all. Thank you.
Supervisor Brennan.
Are you being fairly conservative with your revenue?
Yes.
That's kind of what it sounds like. How much revenue do you have in the bank? What's your contingency right now?
Well, earlier we'd had about $3.5 million, but with the commitment to FHWA, it's lowering us down to about 1.5 to 2. And I really don't want to go below that because every construction project that we have to pay the bill first.
I understand.
For the money to come back.
We hope for it, or we're going to get it?
We hope for it. It's the best I can do, otherwise we can't do it. It's
I know.
the only alternative.
So Rick, unless there's any other questions from the board, on your chart here, under FEMA projects, the first couple items say various and countywide debris removal, emergency protective measures. Would just clearing the roadsides fall into that?
And a lot of that's been reimbursed.
Yeah.
Was removing trees and
Mowing.
no, not clearing a landslide that came down the road but I'd say about 80% of that money was tree removal.
Right.
There's a lot of dead and dying trees.
Right.
Yeah, it also involved, like on Van Dusen, we rocked the river as a temporary solution and put K-rail around it, same with Trinity Alps Road. Those are very preliminary, what are called EO work, which is emergency opening, just to get the road reopening. And for instance, Hyam Palm is also under EO right now for the first period, and there are different types of reimbursements in that.
So I get asked a lot from the public about, because I know, of course, until SB1 hit, you were on some lean budget years.
Yes, very lean.
So they were inquiring about not only, this is great, about tree removal along the road, but any mowing that you guys used to do, they hadn't seen it in a while. So maybe that's a different pot of money that you would use that for.
Well, RMRA is strictly reserved for road maintenance, but the thing that it allows me to do is it allows me to use staff over here to do some of this maintenance, but then that makes that staff available under other existing road funds to do work. So instead of when I got down to 13 staff members, now I can get back up to 23. And in having more folks, I'm able to get to more of these programs. I still have to stay focused on this, but it allows for us to pick up in other areas to get back to some of the old standards that we had had before.
Okay. Thank you.
Question, a reminder, don't forget the levies.
Hyam Palm, yes.
Well, everywhere, but Hyam Palms.
Yeah, and then the levies are...
Just don't forget them. I don't need an explanation. Thank you, Rick. I get it. Thank you.
Okay, any comments from the public on this? No. Okay, bringing back to the board. We need an approval, I assume. Just let me get back to the agenda. Okay, so we're gonna wait, is this a resolution? All right, so I need a motion.
Motion to approve 4.2 as presented.
Do I have a second? Also, go ahead.
I'll second.
All right. Tina?
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Finley?
Yes.
Supervisor Chadwick?
Aye.
Supervisor Morris?
Yes. That sounded perfect. You're getting
Yeah,
a lot of work
very
done in
good.
your district. Thank you, Rick. But you're not leaving. I can see that. Here's the next item as well. So item 4.3, introduce and waive the reading of an ordinance adding chapter 15.1 1.24 to Trinity County Code regarding mass grading regulations, no fiscal impact, fees offset, and other permitting programs.
As you recall, a while back, I believe it was in December, we brought a urgency ordinance to restrict grading that is in large by nature, not meant to be a grading permit program or grading program, but to curtail things that where someone's going to the hillside and essentially chopping off the top of the mountain, pushing over the edge, and doing a lot of what typically has been some damaging type activities. And so what we wanted to do was we wanted to stay focused on a mass grading restriction that would essentially require people to kind of, in a sense, for better words, have a plan when they're going to do some grading. It's not really meant to restrict the grading, but it's meant to ensure that there's provisions in place that when someone goes out there to grade a strip of land, that they have a plan, and they know in particular what best management practices that they need to have in place, and how could they protect what they're doing. And also that we know that they're going to clear and grub the area that they're going to grade and compact soils to, and that they recompact as required for the uniform building code, and to be able to use the property at a later date. So after we heard that, we took it back to the Planning Commission. We still had the mass grading moratorium, and we essentially removed the word moratorium and focused more into what we were trying to address. And what it is essentially we have two things that we were trying to do, which is catch the projects that are larger than 800 cubic yards of material, or that are moving more than 20,000 square feet of property greater than 2 feet in depth. So it's essentially, you're really moving a lot of dirt when you get down to it. To give you an idea of 800 cubic yards, it's about a football field foot deep, or in another way that a lot of people look at it, it would be about 80 10-yard trucks moving dirt. So it'd be about 8 truckloads. So it's not a swimming pool. You're really moving some dirt to do this. So what the focus is it's not to restrict people, but to get them into having some type of plan. And so that's why they have a lot of exemptions to this, which those exemptions are geared towards that activity. And really what we had, the first one is an exemption of if you had a director's use permit. And essentially, if you wanted to move land and it was more than these parameters, you could come in and ask for a director's use permit. We'd ask you what your plan is, what your erosion control practices will be, and we'll issue a director's use permit and send it on the way. Others are, if you're going to be over 800 cubic yards, since that's quite a bit of material, we did want to have a conditional use permit. Any function that requires a director's or conditional use permit would be exempt. Grading under the supervision of a county agency for which the board is a controlling body or a public agency governed by a board of directors, meaning that, if like TRP or someone wanted to go out and do a project, they usually have a plan, they would have permits, they would be exempt. Excavation, fill, with the installation, maintenance, repair, facilities that produce, generate, store, treat, or transmission, water, wastewater, or electric services, essential utilities, would be exempt. Trenching, incidentally to the construction and installation of underground material, which is exempt. Grading in accordance with plans and specifications incorporated into a approved surface mining permit, timber harvest plan, reclamation plan, or solid waste facilities permit any activities that are covered under CEQA or under the Forest Practice Act, which would be the 3-acre exempt conversion, which usually requires a grading plan, so that would be exempt. Grading involves vested mining operations, maintenance of fire breaks or roads to keep fire breaks or roads substantially in original condition. Declared emergency work conducted, planned, or overseen by local, state, or federal agencies, including incident mitigation placement. That means if there's a fire, you can go cut what you need to cut, and afterwards we have usually what's called the BEAR program, which is environmental restoration would be exempt. And then access roads and building pads consistent with the conditions or approvals of approved subdivisions. Grading of existing access road, private roads or driveways, fuel reductions, and agricultural grading, which gives the restrictions there. As far as exemption, or as far as the action we're requesting, we're asking for to approve. If you do not approve, we'll still have these problems with these larger grading projects. Again, this is meant to address about probably, if I were estimating, about 80% of the grading issues that we have out there, which is represents about 10% of the work. Hopefully that will mitigate some of the instances we've seen, like some of the large grading things that if you're driving by and you see it up on the hill and you say, wow, we're supposed to be doing that, usually it's false. At the Planning Commission, there was a concern brought up also about timelines, and we did have a restriction in there that the grading plan had to be approved within, I believe, 30 days. 30 days. If it wasn't, then it's approved by for no action, so it'd just be considered approved. But usually by then, we'll at least have the ability to take a look at it and make sure it's got the fundamentals involved. And so with that, I can answer any questions.
Okay. Go ahead.
May
I got David here to help me too.
Okay, first of all, I really want to thank you and all the people that worked on this for putting this in this form. And I apologize to all my constituents in the county for not having this done years ago. So at least this is coming up, and I really apologize for it. Now, since it's an ordinance, of course, we can do this all retroactively. Yeah, never mind, okay. County council, that's a nice smile. What about, moving that a little bit forward, what about instances that already have deep holes or mountaintops cut off? Is there any way to take a look at that?
This is retroactive, or not retroactive, sorry. I didn't write it that way. I cannot do it, but if they are going to touch it.
In any way, shape, or form?
Not in any way, shape, or form. If they're going to move 800 cubic yards to
okay,
fill
never
that
mind.
hole.
Okay, just
then
thank you very much for this.
Yeah, but this is not the grading ordinance that we all think it's.
I understand that, but this is a start, and this could have helped out a decade ago.
Yeah, those examples,
So
some of the cuts are huge.
Want another apology, Rick?
No.
No, okay, got it.
Oh, yeah. So Rick, how is the enforcement done?
There in the ordinance, there's a provision for enforcement, but really what the enforcement is cease operations and develop a plan to fix it.
Okay.
And essentially, it's to, if we go by and see it, we're gonna red tag it immediately and stop them. And either we're gonna have a choice to mitigate it back to initial conditions, or they'll have to have a reclamation or correction plan to fix what they're doing. And depending on how big it is whether it requires further action from planning commission or just something that staff can take care of at staff level.
Okay. Thank you. Board members?
Yes, thank you to all the staff that participated, and I know that it was disappointing when they came before us with the urgency ordinance, and I think you have worked prolifically in order to bring this to the board so quickly. I do have a couple questions, and I apologize for my ignorance. There are other regulatory agencies. How do we line up? Are we lining up with Fish and Wildlife, CAL FIRE, the Regional Quality Board? Or when you were drafting I'm sure you took that into consideration. I just do not want to be in conflict. That would be one question. And the second question I would have is the messaging that has happened previously in other ways, getting from the planning department to the end hold user can be improved. Is there a mechanism that we are going to put out to the operators that are participating, that we know are licensed and conscientious and have projects right now working, so they know going forward that this is new for Trinity County? And what do we do with the people that are in the middle of the project? So those are three separate questions, if you wouldn't mind addressing them.
Well, both the Water Board and Fish and Game, correct, we're at the Planning Commission?
Correct.
And they both said that this was a very good start towards what they wanted. They see Trinity as the first line of defense towards violations, and this gives us some pretty powerful tools to deal with some pretty big violations. And so they were, they had both comment, I believe it doesn't have everything, but it is pretty far along, and we are very happy to see it, and they both were very supportive of it. So we did have their support publicly at the Planning Commission meeting. And then as far as information, what's interesting is or what's going to be hard. It's the people that this is written for are the folks that don't really know the process, and that's going to be the hard part, because most licensed contractors, one of the contractors got up in the Planning Commission and said, well, I do all this grading, and I always have a permit, and I always do it this way, he was talking for about 10 minutes, and I was sitting there thinking, well, that's exempt, that's exempt, that's exempt, that's exempt. And so, the licensed contractor that's out there grading, he understands and he's going to fit within the exemptions. It's the guy that goes out on Saturday morning and drives over to I-5 Rentals and says, oh, I'm going to get myself a dozer and I'm going to start pushing dirt over the trees and down the hill. That's the guy that we're targeting. And to be quite candid with you, a lot of times, hopefully word of mouth will get out. We'll try to have some workshops or some sort of education where we take them in to try to educate some folks. But those are the folks that are going to be the ones that we have to catch. But this gives us the tools to go out and stop them immediately and get the required corrective action done. And when we're doing that, we will educate that person as to what they're supposed to be doing to be able to do this correctly. That's really, this isn't meant to stop it, it's meant to get them into compliance so that what they're doing is the correct action and we don't have the violations or the discharge or some of the problems that we've had with some of the past grading activities.
And the last question for right now is, what about the projects that are underway? There will be no, I mean, if somebody's in the middle of a project and now we have these rules, are they allowed to finish the project, or do they have to go in and get permission?
They would have to come in and get permission. I mean, if they finish up before it's enacted, then they'd be okay, but as of day of enactment, then they would have to be in the correct position. But being that this has 30 days to enact, a lot of those folks that are thinking about grading right now can come back and look at what they're planning to do and the timeline that they're doing it in. And work with the county to get their, what they're doing approved.
I would just encourage some type of messaging going forward.
Okay.
So, thank
And
you.
we'll be working on that. Yes.
Thank you.
Good question.
Madam Chair, would you prefer, I have a bunch of technical things to go over, would you prefer to do open for public comment first, or?
I'm good with if we continue on the technical side now,
Okay.
does that work for you?
Either way.
That way we're in that mode and
Well, I'm
then
gonna-
get public.
If it's okay, I'm gonna ask my technical advisor.
Madam Chairman, could you stop for about 30 seconds? I gotta make a setting change on my camera.
Okay,
Don't move.
we are going to stop for a moment.
Ready to go.
All right,
Thank you.
sir. All right, we're ready.
Okay, in the exemptions section, which is page 4 of 11. Between item J and K, so a private landowner can't build his own fire trail if the fire's coming down.
So this is David Colbeck, Department of Transportation, Environmental Compliance, so good morning. It's good to be here. So the question specifically is, can an individual conduct emergency work?
Yes.
They can, yes, that would be an exemption.
But it says only if it's overseen by local, state, or federal agencies.
That is true. So this is a question that came up in the planning commission, was the idea of if you have a bulldozer, then you're gonna be required to, or you're gonna be called upon to help in floods or fire situations that can take you out for weeks at a time. So if, and those types of disasters would typically be overseen by a number of different agencies. So this exemption is meant to apply to that situation. But it is also called out in the emergency section, which is number 9, on page 871 in the copy that I have, page 6 of 11, where emergency work is also covered, where if you have a problem, a flood, you need to go out and deal with it immediately. That is allowable, but the department would like to be notified of that situation as soon as possible. That was a specific change in the planning commission, where it originally stated, I believe, notify the department within 1 day. That was considered too short of a timeline, so it was extended to as soon as possible. Understanding conditions change quickly. But the department would like to know within, a permit should be drawn within 10 days of the emergency with some documentation about the conditions that pre-existed and existed after the release.
Well, I will tell you, during fire emergencies that we experienced last year, private people were cutting lines because there was no fire department within 40 miles under an emergency situation. And so there was no overseeing of people who were putting their own lines in. So
yes.
I have a little bit of heartburn with her. So let's go
But
ahead
you're
and,
saying you can do that.
Yeah, we really don't wanna give them away. We just wanna know for record, what they did, and then if there's some erosion control or corrective actions that we
you
can.
can do that if you go afterwards and get a permit.
Correct. And so the Forest Service would typically be putting in some type of water bar or some type of mulching, some sort of remediation after the fact. I know it's not always complete, I know it's not always immediate, but there oftentimes is an attempt to dress up areas that have been graded due to emergency work. So the intent again is the department would be in a position to facilitate that type of, emergency work and repair after the fact.
So within how many days, 10 days?
To apply for the permit, yes, or at least.
So if
to
the
be
fire
honest
wipes
with
you out, you still have to go do it?
The intent is that individuals start a conversation with the department. It's that conversation that allows the department to have some discretion in how any conditions are applied, the timeframe for those conditions to be applied. It doesn't mean that the work has to be done immediately. Life gets complicated, especially in disasters, especially with the availability of equipment for contractors or licensed holding contractors. But if that conversation is happening with the department, then it means that, grading that is entirely unregulated can come to a halt. Mass grading that is entirely unregulated.
Okay, so I'll go on to my bigger heartburn, and this is under agricultural grading. and that does not grade more than 2 feet either above or below existing ground or substantial change in the natural contour, which that's a pretty common, the or change in natural contour. We see that in a lot of places. But we don't have any definitions in this so agricultural grading is, we don't exactly spell out what our ordinance means by that. But if I look in, just Google up agricultural grading, it's disking, the first one I come across is disking on an operating farm. So under this ordinance, if anywhere in your field you covered 2 feet of soil, you would have to have a permit, or if you came in and shank ripped deeper than 2 feet, you would have to get a permit. I kind of understand where you're going, that if you were making large cuts from one side to another and you had a 2-foot gain in a field, but the 2-foot issue is if you're cutting a terrace, it's a 5-foot wide terrace and a 2-foot, anything about that. But if you're on a 300-acre field and across the whole field you have a 2-foot changing slope, and disking is considered moving it, you're obviously over 2,000 or 20,000 square feet. So this, I think, needs to be defined clearer on what agricultural grading is. Because I think there's room for different interpretations to be done on this.
Would you like me to speak to that?
I would love to.
Okay. I mean, whether there was a specific question in there or not, the idea of defining it better, understanding what you're saying. The intent of how this was written is that if you're following the natural contours of land, say you're in a hayfield and you're looking to disc, one, you're following the natural contour, and disking is an activity that, yes, can go below 2 feet, but typically not. You're not really changing the slope of that territory, that ground. You're maintaining the hydrology, you're maintaining the natural contour, you are just ripping the soil. If you're using a shank ripper, if you're using anything that is really digging deep, that there you could be digging 2 foot deep, that is still exempt because it is an agricultural practice that follows the natural contour of the land. The point here is really more toward areas of high slope versus areas of relatively low slope. So, that valley floor where you would typically be haying or have an orchard or any other type of agricultural activity, this is meant to exempt practices that are really not changing the contour of the land. But in high slope situations where terracing is an agricultural practice, where you are digging deeper or raising the elevation greater than 2 feet, then this agricultural exemption does not apply. However, if that entire project that you are terracing does not meet the threshold of 20,000 square feet or 800 cubic yards, then this wouldn't apply either. It's only when you're terracing a substantial amount, 80 dump truck loads of dirt that you're moving in a terraced situation, that does not fall under this agricultural exemption. That would require some construction permit. You would need to go through the standard processes of applying for a permit and identify standard construction restraints, basically. It's a fill-based compactment of it. Is the site drain flowing up? Is it hydrologically disconnected? Are the cut faces stable? What type of soils are you even talking about? Is it appropriate to bench 4 feet or should it be less? Would OSHA be concerned about a 5-foot bench depending on its soil type? Is it type 2, type A, type B? That's the kind of consideration that we're looking to apply to. More information to make sure that type of situation is stable, public safety, and
So I agreed with everything you said, and I wish that I interpreted this what you said. So because we can go back and say, then you do the 2 feet or substantially change the natural contour of land. It's not and, it's or. So these are 2 different sections. And what agricultural grading, you can say that moving 800 yards, but if you're running a disc And even though you're only moving it, 3 inches, that can still be interpreted as moving 800 yards of material in a disc of field. So I'm asking, I'm not disagreeing with your intent, I'm asking for clarity in the ordinance.
And specifically in the exemptions.
In the exemptions, yeah. And then the last thing I'll talk about is item 5 on the same page, just below, time limits of the ordinance. I had requested 4 months ago for us to set priorities for our planning department in what we're going to do in the future. We have not done that. This is more of a work question, so you're off the hook. The fact is, this leaves the impression that we at some time sooner than later are going to work on a grading ordinance more in depth. And I don't see, unless we have a basic change in direction from this body, with that happening within 4 to 6 years. So I don't want to leave the impression to people that this is going to jump over the top of the general plan or cannabis or K-housing or all those issues. And I don't, unless I'm missing something, I don't see us being able to do more things at once. So I would prefer that this to be standalone. We're doing this now. We can say that we, in the future, would like to have a more in-depth grading ordinance. But this is going to be it for a while, in my opinion. The board has different views.
My impression, Rick, when we spoke, was that was your intention. This was going to be a living document for quite a while.
Yeah, it's our, as I've mentioned before, our priorities are really the canvas and everything that we're working on right now, and then the general plan update, grading ordinance, type K housing, and housing element is now in the priority that's coming in next. And because we have to get our housing element updated in order to be eligible for housing funds. So we'll be getting to that discussion. I was hoping to have it this meeting, but we just got caught up in too many things beforehand. Canvas and the general plan update are going to be things that are just going to eat us up all the time available for the next couple of years. So yes, you're right. This will likely be something that will outlast a lot of us before we can get back to. And that was why we wanted to, I said this is like picking low-hanging fruit. Essentially, we tackle something that's a big problem that only pertains to a very small portion of the folks that are out there, and deal with those, but with the intent that someday, our hope is when we can, get back to the rest of the issues. But the grading ordinance, I will tell you, from the standpoint of priorities, would be after cultivation, or after cannabis, and after general plan update along with the housing plan update. So it's a ways down the road.
So what you have presented here will cover us for a while. You feel it
Yes.
would? Okay.
Yeah, again, this will take care of most of our problems.
Supervisor Brown, you've been waiting?
Just the only thing about the clarity on some of the emergency work and how to protect life or property will be interpreted. So if there's a fire coming and it seems like it's out of control, at what point do I get to feel that I need to protect my property from this incoming fire? Or the lightning strikes across the valley and a fire starts, can I go ahead and bulldoze around the property there? So just getting some clarity on what it, and I don't know if it's possible to protect life and property. If there are any definitions in there, that there can be some guidelines to that. I don't know.
Do you feel like it's not covered well enough in the emergency section?
I think it's very beneficial to the property owner, and I feel some people would potentially take advantage of, how do you, where do you debate if you're protecting your life or your property? Where is that? Is it a sheet you fill out, or is it going to be a phone call conversation? So just, yeah,
There's really two types of problems that we have. I mean, I'm gonna just go down to the general meat of this matter, is that we have people that are digging ponds, huge ponds, and are doing these huge fill sections. I mean, just looks like a mine from back in the 1800s. You go to Colorado and you see that long strip of dirt going out from the hillside. That's what we're seeing. Those are the things that we're trying to prevent. To tell you the truth, we get into some of these emergency activities, I don't expect to see those as being the targeted problem as much as some of the others. We're trying to provide exemptions for them and trying to be very broad on that, and we will continue to be. But I think that what we are targeting is not going to fit in those necessarily, and if it is, then we can go back and address it at a later date to tighten that up.
Okay. No, I think the 800 cubic yards is very generous.
Yeah, this is,
amount.
I mean, it's a big number.
It's pretty significant.
Yeah.
So there's a quick follow-up question. An appeal process, if they get cited because they didn't file some paperwork in the middle of a fire lasts 20 days or whatever we see these days. Highly unlikely they would get cited.
Yeah, the appeal process, essentially, if they did get cited or they didn't agree with the decision, they would go through the standard process of appeal.
So it is in place, that's all.
Okay. Supervisor Brown, did you get your question answered?
Yeah, thank you.
Supervisor Chen?
Yeah, I didn't know we were gonna jump into the technicals. I have one also on the emergency, number 9, page 6 of 11. So I'm gonna give you 2 different scenarios and you can just tell me how it works out. I'm a snowbird, I've been gone, winter hit, and I come home, but it's been like that for months. And 2 different scenarios. A, the county came in and cleaned it up, and now what's gonna happen as far as my personal property rights? Or B, I find out the emergency took place 6 months ago, but now I gotta deal with it. I think there needs to be language that specifies that in the emergency, at the time that the person responsible knows, because it's 6 months ago. And so now I'm gonna be putting in for a permit that it actually was an emergency 6 months ago. So 2 different scenarios, or 2 different ways to look at the same emergency. The county didn't clean it up when it was an emergency. I'm getting back. The emergency was 6 months ago, but now I need to do something. But it's not 1 or 2 days after the emergency because time has gone by. Or now the county's cleaning it up and I didn't even know that it happened as a personal property owner. 2 different scenarios, same situation. I hope I'm making myself clear.
Well, the emergency is geared towards something being in peril, meaning life or property or something. And if you've gone 6 months, you might just find out about it. If it's about to roll over your house, that's an emergency. That emergency never left. But if it's dried up out in the field, and it happened 6 months ago, and it was emergency then, but nothing's really progressed from there, and it's stable, it's time to come in and we can develop a plan, and then you can go and get that work done. So it's always...
So it's from the time that you actually know it, but it's
Well,
still an emergency.
Yeah, emergency goes back to, is something in peril, is something in danger at that moment. And if you come upon what would have maybe been emergency work at one time, but it's stabilized, and you haven't had a problem since then, that might not necessarily rank in an emergency. So if your house, what I'm getting at is something has to be jeopardized right at that moment. But if it's not in jeopardy because it's stabilized or it's not the issue that it was earlier, that might not be emergency work at that time, but you could still come in and get a permit to fix it. But it's just, we talked about it beforehand, or you have a plan beforehand, rather than going in, starting it, and then coming in and talking about the
Okay,
plan.
so the next one is, there was an emergency and we as a county went in and did what we had to do. Then what happens?
Well, that'd be under county directed work. And very rarely would we ever go onto a private property and without some sort of permission to do something. So I'm honestly not sure I'm following the question.
If I could add to that just briefly, that yes, within the exemptions, the county itself would be covered, of course, because it's a county action. I believe your question was getting more at the property rights, and the county wouldn't be in the position of looking to abrogate any property rights. It would be an agreement with the county and an individual to address any specific emergency work. Say an example of a road is failing during a storm, and it needs to be corrected immediately. It's conceivable that the county could go in and try to address some culvert issue perhaps, but there would be every effort to make sure that the property owner understands what's going on. It would be an extreme example where that was not followed, in my understanding.
For instance, we'll use the current one, Highland Palm Road. We are coordinating with the Forest Service, because the property that's impacted is Forest Service property. So we already started that dialogue with them.
Okay. We'll come back after we open to the public. All right, anyone else like to comment on this ordinance? Okay.
Never Harley Weaver. I'll warn you, I'm not in a good mood today. So, one of the things that bothers me is, well, first let me praise you. You're doing something, which is good, about grading, about protecting the environment, and protecting people and property. One of the things I think we have a tendency to do is to try to shoot for perfection and get wrapped up in all of the little minutia, or however you say it. And really you have a very simple thing. You could probably put it on a sheet of paper. I think it's also important to have penalties if you don't do it. You know, a dog license, everybody has to have a dog license. Don't get a dog license, it's pretty clear. Drive a car, have a license. If you look at Humboldt County, they have a two-page, both sides of one page, permit application. And it's very simple. You read this, you know what's up. They're talking here about, well, we're going to do this elaborate definition of everything, including what's an emergency or how many feet is this, and it gets very confusing. I think you need to get attention of people so that they don't come in and do this and then say, oh, I'm sorry. You need to get that attention. You may need to include fines. You may need to say everybody's got to get a permit so we know that you're doing something. And then you know if you're doing the right thing. Anyway, that's 2 minutes. Thanks.
Okay, Grace from Lewiston. First of all, this is overly broad, it's too general, and if you read it all the way through, it could include snow. And, you know, I'm burdened by reading the Constitution, and so all of this bothers me. So every time you guys say property rights, my teeth grind. Don't use that term because we don't have them here. If you want to use tenants or something like that in there, that would be much more appropriate. I know that all this, well, what if, then if, I know that Jerry Brown wrote a proclamation for the people in the Helena fire, excluding them specifically and intentionally from regulations that you guys forced on them, lied about, extorted money from, and there's people that still can't get on their property. Well, you can look like that. I brought it to you and read it to you, and you can go see it yourself. They were exempt from, Jerry Brown exempted them from the hazardous waste removal, et cetera, you can go read it yourself. So to say that there's all this stuff that, oh, you're gonna protect your property and then we'll decide what's gonna happen to you, well, it's who you know and what you can get away with. Because it's certainly not gonna be, well, we see that you needed it and it's just common sense, because that's not how this county works. So I didn't realize these permits were gonna be free, because that's almost what it sounds like. We're not stopping you from doing anything. Yeah, you are, you're dogpiling on more stuff, and someone has to come out and inspect it, and all the stuff that goes with it. I mean, if you guys sat there and listed out everything that you have to pay for in this county, and did it on I'd love to see that on the wall. If you come in to buy property, to just buy it and start, raw property, and here's what you have to do, and here's what it's gonna cost you, and here's what it's gonna take. And I hope they let you do it. Because just because you can get a building permit doesn't mean that you will be allowed to get a building permit. And we see that. So if you need to get a grading permit to do something and you don't get one, then you can't do it. And it happens all the time, and you can look at me funny and shake your head, but let's be real. I mean, you guys want to stop the people that have the big tailings and fills, and I see that. But the thing is, there's already so many laws out there. If you roll a dirt clod off your property, fishing game, who's fishing wildlife, can get you. All the water quality board, I mean, all those people can come after you. And so this is just money and more control that you guys are after. And I think you should change the, no longer use the word property rights. Thank you.
So do I understand this right? If I do 20,000 cubic feet of dirt, I have to have permission. So if I do less than that, I don't have to have permission? So I could go down to I-5 Rentals and get a cat and go up there and move 300 feet of dirt and pile it into the trees and I'm kosher? Is that what you're saying, or I'm gonna be breaking some other rule?
We'll have them clarify after.
Hello, Jim Fitzgerald. I'm an engineering geologist. Been grading in Trinity County since about 1998. I support a long-term grading ordinance. I think it's important. A lot of damage has happened in this county. But I think as a practitioner, I'm concerned on a couple things. One is that, well, the timeline's good, 30-day approval period. When you're using iron, it becomes really expensive if things get delayed. So we don't want to like hinder the contractors anymore. And then also, you know, obviously a lot of this is focused around cannabis, and I really think it's important to parallel the water board order that's in place, the permanent order. And they've effectively created a grading ordinance at the cannabis level, and you might as well match that, because that's what they're going to enforce. And then this one question: does this preclude owner-builder permits? So are you basically having to use a licensed contractor if you're exceeding these limits?
I have a question of you.
Sure.
When you mentioned the 30-day, were you referring to the turnaround time for a permit? Is that
Approval.
Approval?
Yeah.
Thank you, and then we'll get your questions answered.
Hello, I'm Chris Cross, I'm from Douglas City. I'm defined as a mass grader by your rules, and I've been moving here to Trinity County for over 30 years. By the way, I'm incorporated, have 2 licenses. Gee whiz, I got all kinds of stuff, but that took too long. This came into the planning commission as a moratorium on grading and got changed to a grading ordinance. So I'm a little bit confused on that and how it happened. But anyway, what I want to see from it, hopefully, since I don't intend to change my occupation, is some kind of structure that we can work with as contractors, something that can be efficient and we can work with. I have no clue what this 30-day thing is and what it'll amount to. If you have a 30-day for a permit and then you have a problem on site and wait 30 days, and then the owl shows up or water quality says it's October 15th, you're done. Then what do? We have a lot of time constraints. We're regulated by a lot of other departments of the county. Cal Fire and Water Quality are 2 of them. Fish and Wildlife's another one. We put up for those rules and regulations a lot. I know that there's a gap between the 1 acre for the water quality and the SWIP and 0. And this is handled in the 3-acre minor conversion, but not on other types of earthwork. As you said in the Mr. Tippett in the exemptions, the 3-acre minor conversion is exempt, but it is still regulated by the county of Trinity, as Leslie knows because she's the regulator. And it has a lot to do with any kind of earthwork and stuff. That mainly, I guess, what I'd like to see is something that's structured, we can work with, competitive, so that everybody's treated the same way. This is a very competitive business. I have no clue what the permit costs or how long it takes to get it, or what you have, who you have to talk to, or what days the office or the hours are open. I want to kind of expense and competitiveness, and I just hope that whoever is administering this is fair and firm, so it's equal throughout the industry. And thank you. I thought those pointed questions you guys said, Board of Supervisors, were very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? We'll bring it back to the board. Okay, so we had a few questions. We'll, the 30-day turnaround. We've heard some concern from our earth movers. Is there a way to shorten that so they're not stuck in limbo?
Yeah, it's, that's, when we have a complete application, it gives us time to, sometimes there'll be a little bit of a queue to go through and check it, and so it's just giving us the time to get to it and give it a good check. We don't want to have it, if it's too short of a time, it means that you have to put off some other higher priority thing at that point to go and deal with this. And so 30 days is a standard that's used by many when there's an intent to keep some sort of timeline or something that can be overridden. I mean, it's a pretty strong effect if you do not make that 30 days, which is automatically gets approved.
And how does that get communicated to the applicant?
Well, that's the way it's in the code is that,
Right,
defaults to approval.
So, Mr. Tippett, are you telling me that if I turn in a permit and you don't get back to me in 30 days, on that 31st day, I get to go out and do whatever I want to do?
Yes.
Thank you.
But you can see their concern about being stuck in limbo, and while somebody who
Well,
isn't
and-
licensed.
And keep in mind that we're cognizant of that, especially when you put steel out there. I deal with that same problem that they deal with. You know, it's time-related overhead. Delay claims are a big thing that you gotta avoid in construction. So you have an approved plan, something comes up and comes in, I'll tell you 9 times out of 10, even more than that, that's gonna be dealt with right away. Because it's usually a very minor issue to a much bigger problem, or a much bigger plan, not a problem, but a plan. So, you know, that is something that you deal with specifically, and a lot of times I see that turned around in 24 hours.
Then we had a question on owner-builder permit. I think the gentleman brought up, as an owner-builder, would you have to still go through this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, owner builder, sometimes provides exemptions.
Okay.
But what we're trying to achieve here is we're trying to achieve, quite candidly, it is a little bit targeted at the owner that is not knowledgeable in grading practices, is probably one of our biggest violators, and they go out and they grade and do damage before they realize what they're doing.
So, but I believe the question was, do you have to have a license to put your reclamation plan in place?
No, we're gonna, my understanding of the program is we're focused on the plan, to make sure that you have what's in place. Now, if it does call for a QSP, that will have to be, you know, if we ask for a erosion control plan prepared by QSP, that will have to be someone that's certified in that particular practice, that understands what is required to develop a correct erosion control plan.
Were you done, Tracy?
Yeah, I was just adding.
Thank you. And I think we had a question, moving 20,000 feet of dirt.
He said yards. but
Or
I
yards.
assume that-
He would not, he would fall into the exemption or not, so there's a lot of exemptions.
I think John still isn't clear on it. It's 20,000 square feet, 800 cubic yards.
You would be exempt.
Right, I mean, if you do less than that, are you exempt?
Less than 800 cubic
Yeah.
yards.
Yes.
So I don't need your permission to move dirt on my property.
You don't need permission, but it doesn't exempt you from all the water quality control rules and all the other rules that are in place that limit discharge from the property or grading. And again, we're trying to catch the really big ones that we have out there, but it doesn't exempt everybody else from going hog wild on the little stuff and forgetting about all the things that the board requires. You discharge from your property and the board traces it back to something you did, you are going to have to answer for that. And that, whether we have this in place or not, is something that you have to answer to now.
Which board traces it back?
Water board.
Thank you.
But,
Yeah, you're thinking
but
of-
ultimately.
No, I just wanted to make sure that
Not
the
us.
public understood
Yeah.
when Rick said the board that he meant
Water board.
Yeah.
California Water
For
Board.
the record, it's not us.
Yeah.
The alphabet soup board.
Right. Okay, anyone else have questions?
I wanted a little follow-up on Mr. Cross's. So if you have a timber harvest plan, if you, let's see what else you have. If you have mining with Minosh or whatever, this doesn't.
Exactly.
So is there
You
any?
have a plan usually with those that require you to address those issues.
So someplace they have the 1 acre, I forget what you call it. No, that was the 1
Water
acre.
board?
Yeah, the water board.
1 acre construction.
1 acre construction. If you have that plan, are you exempt?
Yeah, you're exempted.
It does under agricultural practices, it spells out whether a QSB is involved or not, a sweet stormwater pollution prevention plan.
Basically, anytime you have done a reclamation plan for some government agency, that would cover you here.
You would not need.
Yes.
What, to make it real clear, what we were looking for is you were going out there with a plan that has the correct erosion control and all the provisions that are needed from that grading.
And for the licensed guys here that spoke today, in theory, they're already covered, given all the work and other permits they're getting anyway.
Yeah, most times they do the grading.
Is that your general, David?
They will have some sort of plan that they're working on.
Generally, part of the intent of this is to make sure that the county owns its own ordinance, owns its own regulations. And so it's not specifically relying on state agencies to take control of the natural resource protection or public health or public safety protection. So the county is laying out a structure that it can oversee these types of projects. Yes, there would be other permits, but the jurisdiction of Fish and Wildlife is very specific. The jurisdiction of the water board is very specific. The question was asked very early on about how does this dovetail with other agencies. It does dovetail, but it's also related to the amount of soil that is being removed. And that is something that's removed to this structure. But it fits hand in hand with how other agencies would approach the same problem, including the water board, as was mentioned, the water board, which related to cannabis cultivation, 30% slopes, that sort of thing. It has its own structure that's essentially gradient. This dovetails with that as well. Could the language be the same? Yes, but I would argue that the county is in a position to develop its own ordinance, with its own language, with its own understandings of the limits and the restrictions that it desires, that we desire. Can I speak forward to the flexibility?
Oh, sure.
The intent of this is often in other counties, keep it short. Ooh, okay, keep it short.
That's your boss.
Generally, grading doesn't happen in the wet season. Generally, the state mandates that you cannot grade after a certain time frame. That is generally true, although there's flexibility built into it. This does not preclude the county from being able to negotiate for specific years, for specific projects, the ability to finish something up. It can be flexible. That is the intent of it, based on the conversation that we just had.
Short and concise. Supervisor Groves, do you feel you need some clarification language on that ag explanation?
I do. Two things that I would request is that we clean up the agricultural grading and remove the first paragraph on the time limits, which is it's kind of a captain obvious thing, but the ordinance will remain in effect until the county enacts additional grading policies, which is true on any ordinance, and it's there until it's not there. But to me, it shows that we are planning to do something in the future, which at this time we are not.
So that's on number 5.
If I could request on the agriculture use that we take an action today and that we, like we have on recent other things, refer that back to the planning commission.
On
The ag, just the ag grading.
Can't it just get clarified a little bit more?
Well, Rick's trying to speed the process up 14 days.
I'm interested too. I mean, as the weather gets better and people learn that there's an ordinance coming out, you're gonna get some eager beavers out there at I-5 early in the morning.
I don't know how that's going to speed it.
No, he's saying that they'll get going on projects prior to the ordinance.
If this gets pushed back 2 more weeks.
Oh, I know that, so I don't know that.
We can't do the same
So
project.
he's asking to pass this, which puts everything, but it puts it in as is,
Okay.
and then he's promising he'll fix something later.
I gotcha, okay, I
So
see.
it's if I trust them to fix it later.
Well, you know, we've been doing that. Just comment towards like a course change.
Yeah,
that
I follow you now, got it. I got it.
So you want to clean up specifically the definition of ag,
Agricultural grading in that paragraph.
So do you want to list out what you, if we pass today, what you want to come back?
I just did.
Well, can you just repeat it so staff really has it down?
Well, it is my understanding that today we could just remove that first, number 5, we could remove that paragraph that was the will of the board. So that's an easy one.
Yes.
And the only other issue, well, if you're going back to the planning, I would like further discussion on the emergency. The previous, specifically for homeowners or large, an SPI if they want to go pop some fire lines. And at least to have that discussion. I mean,
Well, I am requesting that you enact.
I understand what you're requesting, but when I'm
Yes.
if I'm going along with it, the two things that I would like the planning commission to talk about is that issue, and then describe agricultural grading, taking into consideration that we don't want to stop somebody from shanking their field, or describing that disking a field is not moving 800 yards.
Yeah, I think the target on that was, or I do know the target on that was terracing. And we can go back and clean that language up. And
I will say with all honesty is if you disc a field for 40 years that has not much slope, it does terrace itself as the years go by. So I don't know how you define that.
It's per project, the 800 cubic yards.
Right.
Per
well,
project.
So, yeah, you just, a project is, I dissed it today and I dissed it tomorrow and I dissed it.
But then you stop for the winter time, and so.
Okay.
You're talking cumulative.
Yeah, there is an cumulative issue that I'm not, as concerned about. Here, I am a little concerned on the definition and not.
Well, we'll make sure that we address the cumulative issues on that type, on agricultural grading. We'll bring that up with the planning commission.
So I motion to approve item 4.3 as presented.
Okay, I have
And
a
you have a
question.
second.
I have a question. If we take that first paragraph out of 5 today, we're good to go?
You have a motion on the table and you've got a second.
Okay, to remove that paragraph,
No, the motion was not, the motion was just as is.
Correct.
but I think we can remove that paragraph, so would you guys?
I would do a subsequent,
Okay.
then I would ask to remove the first paragraph on number 5,
Mhm.
and then send those two items previously discussed back to the planning commission for further improvement.
I will second the subsequent, if I could also ask you to amend to 21 days instead of 30 days.
Why don't you make a subsequent?
Going once?
Pull back the motion and change your motion. No.
We have a motion on the table that was Supervisor
She wants to
Rhodes.
deal with that.
We do not have a second on it yet, so we're waiting for the second. I know you have language, but we need a second before you can even discuss.
I'll second the discussion.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay.
So I would just, I know 21 days is 7 whole days, or depending on the month, 30 days. I just think for people that are actually in the field working, to wait on a project 3 weeks feels like an eternity, and usually their work gets backed up to a certain season. They can't work, like, as you said, it usually goes dead. So I would just like to see it at 21 days rather than the 30 days. But
So motion maker, you're being asked if you do that.
No, we already have one.
yeah, that was discussion.
She would have to do that.
Yes, right.
What if we sent that back to the planning commission for further discussion? So I would amend or do my?
Pull back the second.
You will amend your motion.
Amend my motion to also send back
For 21.
for 21 days and it automatically defaults to the planning commission discussion.
I will second that.
Okay,
And a second.
so I have a motion to remove that first paragraph on 5 and sending 3 items back to the PC.
You can ask some clarification on which 5 you're referring to.
Paragraph 5.
Time limits ordinance on page 5 of 11. It's, the nature is moving dirt as we speak.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, yeah.
Is that enough clarity?
That's clarifying. There's multiple fives, so I want to make sure I have the right one.
Supervisor Chowder?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown? Supervisor Finley?
No.
Supervisor Morris?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Before we go to close. All right, so this morning we introduced a subsequent item. You have a letter in front of you, if you recall from a previous board meeting or two. There's Senator McGuire is offering SB 67 to help with the temp license for cannabis license holders, cultivation or otherwise. The state is backed up, I know that's not surprising. He is trying to keep the temp license in play until the state processes those to the next level. Late last week, the state came out announcing they would start moving people into the provisional licensing world. Even though that might happen, his office feels this would provide a safety net while that continues to be processed, those licenses into provisional. I had hoped to bring it to our next meeting in April, but this is now moving faster than we anticipated, even with the 24 hours, and will be on the Senate floor this Thursday, hence the need to have this letter of support today. So that is it. Any questions? Okay, moving to the public, any questions for the public, comments? Seeing none, okay. Back to the board.
Make a motion to accept the item 4.4, is it, I don't know.
A subsequent.
Subsequent.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Second that?
Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Aye, everyone said aye, I think. Anyone
Yeah.
opposed? Okay. No, no. I- Yeah. With this?
It's all passed.
That's all passed, okay. All right, so the letter's passed, thank you for it, and we will move into closed session. Yes, we can take a
Let her read the closed session first.
Sorry, Jeremy.
Sorry, yeah.
And then I'll.
Out of here.
All right, item 5.1, Government Code Section 54954.5, conflicts with legal counsel, existing litigation, number of cases 2. Trinity Action Association Incorporated versus County of Trinity, Trinity County Superior Court case number 19CB001. Cox versus Padilla, Sacramento Court case number, Sacramento Superior Court case number 34-2019-8000390. 5.2, Government Code Section 54954.5, conflicts with legal counsel, initiation of litigation, number of cases 1, Court Street property. 5.3, Government Code Section 54945.5, public employee evaluation, county administrative officer. All right, anyone would like to comment on these items?
5.2, what Court Street property are you talking about?
Are we able to go into any detail?
That after closed session, the board wants to announce out, it's the board's
Now,
property.
according to the code you slate here, you have to say in public before the case what the property address is or the AP or the APN number.
Council says we can announce out after.
If you read the law, you have to say it prior to going to closed session.
afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. My bi-weekly pre-closed session talk. If you gaze into the very recent past and the grading ordinance just enacted, second to last section, CEQA, excellent paragraph, explains a lot. This is what we normally do. I can use the term loosely. So when you hear, we're just trying to treat cannabis the way everything else is, understand that we've just allowed every parcel in Trinity County, to include the ones in town, can grade 19,000 square feet. They can move 79 dump trucks of dirt. And they're exempt from CEQA under very valid exemptions. 500 maximum parcels growing 10,000 square feet. They can't use water from the surface. It's subject to this ongoing battle. So just encourage you to maintain that perspective. And again, I thank you for being part of this litigation, holding a strong line. Hopefully it's behind us soon. So with that, I will leave you to your important business. Thank you.
All right. So,
Can I request to make sure that county council is comfortable with her previous statement?
So on this item, we don't have to put anything down. My understanding was with Court Street property, just to give you general premises of where the idea we're going to be discussing, that it's not a specific property, just a general property. But typically, we don't even include that. We just did that this time to give the boards and the public a general idea of where we're looking at. So it's the board's pleasure if you want to continue forward. But again, I don't have any concerns because again, there's nothing specific at this time.
All right, thank you.
so board members, we have a couple options. We can take a quick break and come back. We can leave for lunch and then come back for closed session.
Quick break.
Quick break.
Quick break. Yeah, this is not good.
John?
Fine. I like it, yeah.
Okay.
Jeremy's got a great idea.
So we'll take a quick break and wait on lunch. I will report out.
Okay, you're going.
Okay, under item 5.1, under TAA versus Trinity County, no direction given. Under Cox versus Padilla, direction given. 5.2, number of cases initiating litigation, withdrawn for lack of information. And 5.3, government code section, public employee evaluation complete. And the meeting's adjourned.